the shadowed halls of Blackwood Manor, a glamorous actress, Sophia Lyle, vanishes during a lavish dinner, leaving behind a trail of cryptic Cluser blood-stained shawl, a lion's head ring, a secret tunnel, and a chilling note: the treasure is mine. Hercule Poirot, the master detective, unravels a deadly web of betrayal, revenge, and hidden riches. As Sophia's past as Clara Duval surfaces, tied to a stolen ring and a vengeful, scarred man, Poirot uncovers a plot orchestrated by a ghost from the manor's past Lionel Blackwood, disguised among the guests, with a trap set to bury them. Old Poirot races against time to save Sophia and expose the true mastermind in a thrilling showdown of secrets and lies. Chapter 1. The invitation to Blackwood Manor. The crisp autumn air hung heavy with the scent of damp leaves, as Hercule Poirot, the famous detective with his neat moustache and sharp eyes, stepped off the train at the sleepy village of Ashby Green. His polished shoes clicked on the cobblestone path leading to Blackwood Manor, a grand old house nestled among ancient oaks. Poirot adjusted his coat, his mind already buzzing with curiosity. He had received a letter 3 days ago, written in elegant handwriting, inviting him to a dinner party hosted by Sir Reginald Blackwood, a wealthy man known for his love of fine wine and finer secrets. The letter hinted at something, about a delicate matter that needed Poirot's keen mind. He never refused a puzzle, especially one wrapped in mystery. The manor loomed ahead, its tall windows glowing like eyes in the fading light. Ivy clung to the stone walls, and the iron gates creaked as Poirot pushed them open. A butler, stiff as a board, greeted him at the door. "Monsieur Poirot, welcome," he said, his voice flat but polite. "Sir Reginald awaits you in the drawing room." Poirot followed the butler through a maze of hallways, each lined with portraits of stern-faced Blackwoods glaring down. The air smelled of old wood and wax polish. In the drawing room, a fire crackled, casting shadows on the walls. Sir Reginald, a tall man with silver hair and a nervous smile, stood by a table covered with crystal glasses and a decanter of red wine. "Monsieur Poirot," Sir Reginald's voice boomed, though his eyes darted to the door. "So good of you to come. I trust the journey was pleasant." "Most pleasant," Sir Reginald Poirot replied, his accent smooth as silk. "But I am most curious about this delicate matter you mentioned." Sir Reginald's smile faltered. "All in good time, my dear detective. First, let me introduce you to my guests. We are a small but interesting group tonight." The room held 8 people, each one sizing up Poirot like he was a rare coin. There was Lady Margaret Blackwood, Sir Reginald's wife, her sharp green eyes scanning everyone with quiet suspicion. She wore an emerald necklace that glittered in the firelight. Next to her stood Clara Henshaw, a young artist with messy curls and paint-stained fingers, her smile bright but uneasy. Dr. Arthur Vance, a doctor with a stern face and greying beard, sipped his wine slowly, watching the room like a hawk. Beside him was Evelyn Marsh, a quiet widow dressed in black, her hands twisting a handkerchief. Then there was Victor Crane, a loud businessman with a red face and a laugh that echoed too long. His wife, Beatrice Crane, stood stiffly beside him, her lips pressed thin. Rounding out the group were Thomas Reed, a shy librarian with round glasses, and Sophia Lyle, a glamorous actress whose every move seemed staged for an audience. Poirot's eyes flicked over each guest, noting their posture, their glances, the way their hands moved. People always revealed more than they thought, he knew. A twitch, a frown, a too-quick smile, clues hid in the smallest details. Dinner will be served soon, Sir Reginald said, clapping his hands. But first, a toast. He raised his glass. To good company and safe evenings. The words hung oddly in the air. Poirot noticed Clara's hand shake as she lifted her glass, and Dr. Vance's eyes narrowed. Evelyn Marsh barely touched her drink, her face pale. Something was wrong here, Poirot thought. The room felt like a stage before the curtain rose on. A tragedy. Dinner was served in a grand dining hall, the tables set with silver and candles. The food was rich roast lamb, creamy potatoes, and a dark, spiced soup. But the mood was heavy. Sir Reginald tried to keep things lively, telling stories of his travels, but the guests were quiet. Victor Crane bragged about his latest business deal, his voice booming, while Beatrice rolled her eyes. Clara sketched on a napkin, her pencil scratching softly. Sophia Lyle laughed too loudly at Sir Reginald's jokes, her eyes darting to the door. Poirot ate slowly, watching, listening. Halfway through the meal, a scream pierced the air. Every head turned. The butler rushed in, his face white. It's Miss Lyle," he stammered. "She's gone. Sir Reginald stood, knocking over his glass. Red wine spilled like blood across the tablecloth. "What do you mean, gone?" "She was in the parlour, sir," the butler said. "I saw her step out for a moment, and now she's nowhere to be found." The guests erupted into chatter. Lady Margaret clutched her necklace, her face tight. Clara dropped her pencil, her eyes wide. Dr. Vance stood, calm but alert, while Evelyn Marsh whispered a prayer. Victor Crane muttered something about bad manners, and Beatrice shushed him. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the room. "Calm, please," he said, his voice steady. "We must act with order. When was Mademoiselle Lyle last seen, and by whom?" The butler swallowed. "Just after the soup, sir. She said she needed air and went to the parlour. I checked a moment. Ago she's not there. The window was open, but nothing else." Poirot's mind raced. An open window, a missing guest, a house full of strangers, each hiding something. He turned to the group. "No one leaves this room until we search the house. The truth, Mies Amos, is like a shadow, it cannot hide forever." The search began at once. The guests split into pairs, guided by Poirot's instructions. He took Sir Reginald and Lady Margaret, leading them to the parlour. The room was small, with heavy curtains and a single open window. A cold breeze swept in, fluttering the papers on a desk. Poirot knelt, inspecting the floor. A tiny scrap of fabric, bright red, caught his eye. It matched Sophia Lyle's dress. "Interesting," Poirot murmured, tucking the fabric into his pocket. "Sir Reginald, this delicate matter you spoke of, tell me now." Sir Reginald glanced at his wife, then sighed. "It's about my brother, Lionel. He disappeared a year ago, after an argument. I've received letters since then, threatening to expose family secrets unless I pay. I thought tonight might bring answers, but now this." Lady Margaret's lips tightened. "You should have told me, Reginald," she said sharply. "Secrets in this house never stay buried." Poirot nodded, his mind piecing together fragments. A missing brother, blackmail, a vanished guest. The threads were there, but the pattern was unclear. He moved to the window, noting the muddy ground below. No footprints, but the grass was flattened, as if someone had jumped. The other guests returned, reporting nothing unusual. Clara clutched her sketchbook, her hands trembling. Dr. Vance said the garden was empty, though he'd found a cigarette butt near the hedge. Evelyn Marsh whispered about curses, her eyes wide with fear. Victor Crane complained loudly, while Beatrice stayed silent, her gaze fixed on the floor. Poirot gathered them in the dining hall. Mademoiselle Lyle has not left the grounds, he said firmly. She is either hidden or taken. We must search again, but first, I asked, did anyone see her after she left this room? Silence. Then Thomas Reed, the librarian, cleared his throat. I saw her in the hallway, he said, his voice barely audible. She was talking to someone, but I couldn't see who. She looked scared. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Merci, Monsieur Reed. This is most helpful. Now, we search the house, every room, every corner. No one rests until we find her. The night grew darker, the manor's shadows deeper. Poirot moved through the halls, his steps silent, his mind sharp. Each guest was a piece of the puzzle, but one was lying. He could feel it, the scrap of fabric, the open window, the cigarette, but all clues leading somewhere, but where? As they searched, Clara lingered near a bookshelf, her fingers tracing the spines. Poirot watched her, noting the way her eyes flicked to a specific book. He approached, pulling it out. A hollow space. Behind it held a folded letter. He unfolded it carefully, reading the words, "Pay, or the truth comes out." Lionel knows. Poirot's moustache twitched. Most interesting, he whispered. Clara froze, her face pale. Mademoiselle Henshaw, he said, turning to her. You have something to tell me, Nan, Clara stammered. I don't know anything. I found that letter yesterday. I didn't know what to do. Before Poirot could press further, a crash echoed from upstairs. The group rushed to the saucer guest bedroom. The door was ajar, and inside, a chair lay broken on the floor. A faint smear of blood marked the wall. Poirot's heart quickened. The game, it seemed, had just begun. The rest of the night passed in a blur of questions and searches, but Sophia Lyle remained missing. The guests grew restless, their nerves fraying. Poirot kept them together, watching their every move. Lady, Margaret's cold stare, Clara's nervous hands, Dr. Vance's calm control, each held a secret, he was sure. But which one held the key? By dawn, the manor felt like a trap. Poirot stood in the parlour, staring at the open window. The red fabric in his pocket felt heavy. He turned to the group, his voice firm. We will find Mademoiselle Lyle, he said, and we will find the truth. Hercule Poirot does not fail. The guests exchanged glances, some fearful, some defiant. The puzzle was far from solved, but Poirot knew one thing. Blackwood Manor held more than shadows. It held a killer. Chapter 2. Shadows in the manor. The pale light of dawn crept through the tall windows of Blackwood Manor, casting long shadows across the dining hall where Hercule Poirot stood, his sharp eyes scanning the gathered guests. The air was thick with tension, the kind that settles after a sleepless night filled with fear and suspicion. Sophia Lyle, the glamorous actress, was still missing, and the smear of blood on the upstairs wall lingered in everyone's thoughts like a dark stain. Poirot's neat moustache twitched as he clasped his hands behind his back, his mind racing through the clues. The scrap of red fabric, the open parlour window, the mysterious letter hidden behind a book, and Thomas Reed's hesitant confession about seeing Sophia in the hallway, frightened. The guests sat around the heavy oak table, their faces drawn. Sir Reginald Blackwood, the host, rubbed his temples, his silver hair dishevelled. Lady Margaret, his wife, sat rigid, her emerald necklace glinting as she stared at the floor. Clara Henshaw, the young artist, clutched her sketchbook, her fingers smudged with charcoal. Dr. Arthur Vance, the stern doctor, leaned back in his chair, his grey beard framing a face that gave nothing away. Evelyn Marsh, the widow in black, twisted her handkerchief, her lips moving in silent prayer. Victor Crane, the loud businessman, muttered complaints, while his wife, Beatrice, shot him sharp looks. Thomas Reed, the shy librarian, pushed his glasses up his nose. Avoiding eye contact, Poirot cleared his throat, and the room fell silent. "Mies Amos," he began, his voice calm but firm, "we are in the midst of a puzzle, one that grows darker with each hour. Mademoiselle Lyle has vanished, and the clues we have found, the fabric, the blood, the letter suggests this is no simple disappearance. Someone in this house knows more than they say. Hercule Poirot will find the truth, but I require your cooperation." Victor Crane snorted. "Cooperation? We've been up all night traipsing through this dusty old house, and for what? That actress probably ran off for attention. Typical theatre nonsense." Beatrice elbowed him. "Victor, hush. This isn't a game. There was blood, for heaven's sake." "Blood does not lie," Poirot said, his eyes narrowing, "and neither does the absence of footprints beneath the parlour window, nor the letter mentioning Sir Reginald's brother, Lionel. We must proceed with method. Each of you will account for your movements last night, starting from the moment Mademoiselle Lyle left the dining room." A murmur rippled through the group. Lady Margaret's lips tightened, and Clara's pencil snapped in her hand. Poirot noted every reaction, storing them like pieces of a jigsaw. Sir Reginald spoke first, his voice strained. "After the soup, Sophia said she felt faint and needed air. I assumed she'd return quickly. I stayed at the table, talking with Victor about his shipping business." Victor nodded. We were jawing about cargo rates. Dull stuff, but I didn't see her leave." Beatrice sniffed. "I was right beside Victor, trying to enjoy my meal despite his endless chatter. I didn't notice Sophia go." Dr. Vance crossed his arms. "I saw her stand and excuse herself. I thought nothing of it. People often need a moment at these long dinners. I stayed put, discussing a medical journal with Thomas." Thomas Reed blushed, his voice soft. "Yes, we talked about, anatomy texts. But I did see Sophia later, in the hallway, as I told you. She was near the library, whispering with someone. I couldn't see who, it was too dark." Poirot tilted his head. "And you, Monsieur Reed, why were you in the hallway?" Thomas fidgeted. I needed a book. I get nervous at parties, and reading calms me. I went to fetch something from the library." Poirot's gaze shifted to Clara. "Mademoiselle Henshaw, you were sketching during dinner. Did you see anything?" Clara's eyes darted to her sketchbook. "I was focused on my drawing. I didn't notice her leave, but I did hear a door creak maybe 10 minutes after the soup course." "And you, Madame Marsh?" Poirot asked, turning to the widow. Evelyn's voice trembled. "I was praying quietly. This house, it feels heavy, like something bad is waiting. I didn't see Sophia, but I felt a chill, like a warning." Poirot nodded, his mind cataloguing each word. Lady Margaret spoke last, her tone cold. "I was at the head of the table, ensuring the staff served properly. I didn't see Sophia leave, but I did notice her glass was barely touched. She seemed distracted." Poirot paced slowly, his polished shoes clicking on the floor. "Mercy, now. We must search again, but with purpose. The blood upstairs suggests harm, but the open window suggests escape or deception." We will examine the bedroom where the blood was found, and the library where Monsieur Reed saw Mademoiselle Lisle. Sir Reginald, you will show me the grounds. The rest, pair up and search the upper floors." The guests grumbled but obeyed. Poirot followed Sir Reginald outside, the morning mist curling around the manor's stone walls. The garden was a tangle of roses and hedges, the ground soft from recent rain. Beneath the parlour window, Poirot knelt, examining the grass. It was still flattened, but he noticed something new, a faint impression, like the edge of a shoe half hidden by leaves. "Curio," Poirot murmured, brushing the leaves aside. The print was small, too small for a man like Victor or Dr. Vance. A woman's shoe, perhaps, or a deliberate trick. Sir Reginald shifted uneasily. "Monsieur Poirot, about Lionel. I didn't want to alarm the guests, but those letters I mentioned, they've grown more threatening. The last one arrived yesterday, demanding I bring a detective. That's why I invited you." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And you told no one? Not even Madame Blackwood?" Sir Reginald shook his head. "Margaret worries enough. I thought I could handle it. Secrets, Sir Reginald, are like cracks in a wall. They weaken everything." Poirot stood, brushing dirt from his hands. "Come, we return to the house." Inside, the search continued. Poirot led the way to the guest bedroom where the blood smear had been found. The room was small, with a bed, a wardrobe, and a broken chair still lying on the floor. The blood, a thin streak on the wall, was dry now, a rusty brown. Poirot examined it closely, noting its height too low for a standing person, too high for a fall. He ran his fingers along the wall, finding a faint scratch, as if something sharp had grazed it. "Dr. Vance," Poirot called, beckoning the doctor. "This blood, can you tell if it is fresh?" Dr. Vance peered at the smear, his face grim. "It's less than a day old, I'd say. Not much blood, though. A cut, perhaps. Not a fatal wound." Poirot nodded, then turned to the wardrobe. He opened it, revealing a jumble of coats and scarves. At the bottom, half hidden, was a silk glove, stained with a dark spot. Blood. Poirot slipped it into his pocket, his expression unreadable. The group moved to the library next, a cavernous room lined with books from floor to ceiling. Thomas Reed hovered near the shelves, his hands twitching. Poirot approached the spot where Clara had found the letter. The hollow space behind the book was empty now, but he noticed a faint dust pattern, as if another object had been removed. "Monsieur Reed," Poirot said, "you said Mademoiselle Lisle was whispering here. Show me exactly where." Thomas pointed. "To a corner near a tall window. There, by the curtain." It was dark, but I heard her voice sharp, like she was arguing. Poirot examined the curtain, finding a single blonde hair caught in the fabric. Sophia's hair was blonde, he recalled. He tucked the hair away, his mind turning. An argument, a hidden letter, a missing woman. The pieces were piling up, but the picture was still blurred. As the morning wore on, the guests grew restless. Victor Crane stormed into the library, his face red. "This is ridiculous. We're prisoners in this house, chasing ghosts. I say we call the police and be done with it." "The police," Poirot said smoothly, "will come when I am ready. For now, we work with method. Tell me, Monsieur Crane, why are you so eager to leave?" Victor sputtered. "I've got business. In London, I don't have time for this nonsense." Beatrice's eyes flashed. "Victor, you're making a fool of yourself. Sit down." Poirot watched their exchange, noting Beatrice's sharp tone. She knew something, he thought, or she was hiding her own fear. He turned to Clara, who was sketching again, her pencil moving frantically. "Mademoiselle, may I see your drawings?" Clara hesitated, then handed over her sketchbook. The pages were filled with quick sketches of the manor, its windows, its halls, its guests. One drawing caught Poirot's eye, a rough sketch of Sophia, her face twisted in fear, standing by a door. "When did you draw this?" he asked. Clara bit her lip. "Last night during dinner, I saw her expression when she left the table. It stuck with me." Poirot studied the sketch. The door in the background looked like the one to the parlor. Another clue, perhaps. He handed the sketchbook back, his mind racing. By midday, the search had yielded little else. The guests gathered in the dining hall again, their faces pale with exhaustion. Poirot stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding silence. "We have found much, yet not enough," he said. "The glove, the hair, the letter, they tell a story, but not the whole. I ask you now, if anyone knows more about Mademoiselle Lyle's plans or enemies, speak." Evelyn Marsh's voice broke. The silence. She mentioned something to me yesterday, before dinner. She said she was afraid of someone here. She wouldn't say who, but she said they knew something about her past. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And you did not think to mention this sooner?" Evelyn shrank back. "I thought she was being dramatic. She's an actress, after all." Poirot paced, his mind weaving threads together. Sophia's fear, the blackmail letter, the blood. Someone in this room was playing a dangerous game, and he was determined to unmask them. The afternoon brought a new discovery. While searching the attic, Dr. Vance called Poirot to a dusty corner where a trapdoor led to a narrow staircase. "I found this," he said, pointing to a scrap of paper wedged in the floorboards. It was a torn photograph, showing half of Sophia's face, smiling, next to another person whose face was missing. The edge was jagged, as if torn in anger. Poirot held the photograph to the light. "This is no accident," he said. "Someone wanted this hidden ore destroyed." As evening fell, the manor grew colder, the shadows longer. Poirot gathered the guests again, his voice steady but sharp. "We are close, Mies, Amos. The truth is here, in this house, in this room. Someone knows where Mademoiselle Lyle is. Speak now, or the consequences will be severe." The room was silent, but the air crackled with fear. Clara's hands trembled. Lady Margaret's eyes burned with defiance. Victor Crane looked away, and Beatrice's fingers tightened on her glass. Poirot knew he was close, but the puzzle was not yet complete. The night ahead would reveal more awe, it would bring more danger. Chapter 3. The Echoes of Secrets. The evening shadows stretched long across Blackwood Manor, wrapping the dining hall in a dim, uneasy glow. Hercule Poirot stood at the head of the table, his small frame commanding the room as the guests shifted. In their seats, the air was heavy with unspoken fears, the kind that fester when trust erodes. Sophia Lyle, the actress with her dazzling smile and frightened eyes, remained missing, and each new clue a scrap of red fabric, a smear of blood, a torn photograph tightened the knot of mystery. The torn photograph found in the attic, showing half of Sophia's face, haunted Poirot's thoughts. Who was the other person, and why was the image ripped apart? His moustache twitched as he surveyed the guests. Their faces a gallery of secrets. Sir Reginald Blackwood slumped in his chair, his silver hair catching the candlelight. Lady Margaret, his wife, sat straight, her emerald necklace a cold gleam against her pale skin. Clara Henshaw, the artist, gripped her sketchbook. her charcoal-smudged fingers trembling. Dr. Arthur Vance, the doctor, watched the room with a steady gaze, his grey beard framing a face carved from stone. Evelyn Marsh, the widow, clutched her handkerchief, her eyes darting as if expecting a ghost. Victor Crane, the businessman, drummed his fingers on the table, his red face flushed with impatience. Beatrice Crane, his wife, sat silent, her lips a thin line. Thomas Reed, the librarian, adjusted his glasses, his hands fidgeting as if they longed for a book to hide behind. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the low murmurs. "Mies, Amos," he said, his voice smooth but edged with steel. "The hour grows late, and the truth remains elusive. Mademoiselle Lyle is not merely missing, she is the center of a web, and each of you holds a thread. The photograph, the blood, the letter about Lionel Blackwood, these are not accidents. Someone here knows. More, I ask again. Speak, before the shadows reveal what you hide." The silence was thick, broken only by the crackle of the fire. Victor Crane snorted, his voice loud. "This is nonsense, Poirot. We've turned this house upside down, and what do we have? A glove, a hair, a bit of blood. Maybe Sophia's playing a stunt for publicity. Actresses do that, you know." Beatrice's eyes flashed. "Victor, for once, be quiet. Blood isn't a stunt. Something's wrong here." Poirot nodded, his gaze flicking to Beatrice. Her sharp tone hid something, fear, perhaps, or guilt. He turned to Evelyn Marsh. "Madame, you said Mademoiselle Lyle feared someone here. Did she give any hint, any name?" Evelyn's hands twisted her handkerchief. "No, no name. She just said, they know too much about me." Her voice shook like she was trapped. Poirot's mind raced. Sophia's past, then, was a key, but whose knowledge of it drove her to fear or to vanish? He paced, his shoes clicking on the polished floor. "We must dig deeper. The photograph suggests a connection, someone close to Mademoiselle Lyle. The attic trapdoor suggests a hiding place or an escape. We will search again, but first, I wish to speak with each of you alone. Sir Reginald, we begin with you." The guests exchanged uneasy glances as Sir Reginald stood, his face pale. Poirot led him to the library, its shelves looming like silent witnesses. The room smelled of old leather and dust, the tall window letting in a sliver of moonlight. Poirot gestured to a chair. "Sit, Sir Reginald. Tell me of Lionel, your brother. Why did he vanish, and why did these letters threaten you?" Sir Reginald sank into the chair, his hands trembling. Lionel was reckless. He loved gambling, parties, women. A year ago, we argued he wanted money, more than I could give. He stormed out, and I never saw him again. Then the letters started, demanding cash to keep family secrets quiet. I thought he was behind them, but I don't know anymore. Poirot leaned forward. "And these secrets, what are they?" Sir Reginald's eyes darted away. "Old business deals, nothing more. Things that could embarrass me." Poirot's mustache twitched. A lie or half-truth. He pressed gently. "And Mademoiselle Lyle, did she know Lionel?" Sir Reginald hesitated. She performed at a party he hosted, months before he disappeared. I didn't think much of it." Poirot noted the pause, the flicker of unease. "Mercy, you may return. Send Lady Margaret next." Lady Margaret entered, her posture rigid, her green eyes cold. She sat without being asked, her hands folded. "What do you want, Monsieur Poirot? I have nothing to hide." Poirot smiled faintly. Madame, everyone hides something. Tell me, of your husband's brother, and of Mademoiselle Lyle. Lady Margaret's lips tightened. Lionel was a disgraced charming, but selfish. I was glad when he left. As for Sophia, I barely knew her. She was Reginald's guest, not mine. Poirot tilted his head. And the letters threatening your husband, did you know of them? Her eyes flickered. He mentioned them yesterday, after you arrived. I told him to ignore them. Blackmailers are cowards. Poirot nodded, sensing her anger masked something deeper. Mercy, madame. Send Dr. Vance. One by one, Poirot questioned. The guests. Dr. Vance was calm, claiming he'd only met Sophia at the dinner and knew nothing of Lionel. Clara admitted sketching Sophia's fearful face because it felt important, but denied knowing more about the letter she'd found. Evelyn Marsh repeated her story of Sophia's fear, adding that she'd seen Sophia clutch a small locket. During dinner, Victor Crane blustered, saying he'd never met Sophia before and cared only about his business. Beatrice was curt, insisting she'd been too busy managing Victor to notice anything. Thomas Reed stammered, repeating his story of seeing Sophia in the hallway, adding that her whisper sounded angry, not just scared. Each interview sharpened Poirot's focus. Lies mingled with truth, and the photographs missing half gnawed at him. After the last guest, he returned to the dining hall, where the group waited, their faces tense. We have learnt much, Poirot said, but not enough. The locket Madame Marsh mentioned, did anyone else see it? Clara raised a hand. I did. It was gold, heart-shaped, on a thin chain. She kept touching it, like it meant something. Poirot nodded. Another clue. We must find this locket. It may tell us who Mademoiselle Lyle feared. Now, we search the grounds again, and the attic. Dr. Vance, Monsieur Reed, you will come with me to the attic. The rest, search the garden and stables. The group dispersed, their footsteps echoing in the silent manor. Poirot climbed the narrow attic stairs, the air growing musty. The trapdoor creaked as Dr. Vance pushed it open, revealing a cramped space filled with trunks and cobwebs. Moonlight filtered through a small window, casting eerie shapes. Search carefully, Poirot said, his eyes scanning the floor. He noticed a faint scuff mark near a trunk, as if it had been moved recently. He opened it, finding old clothes and papers. Beneath a moth-eaten shawl, his fingers brushed something harder gold locket, heart-shaped with a tiny clasp. Mon Dieu, Poirot whispered, opening it. Inside was a miniature photograph of Sophia, younger, laughing, beside a man with dark hair. The man's face was scratched out, leaving only a blur. Poirot's pulse quickened. Lionel or someone else? Dr. Vance peered over his shoulder. That's her, all right. Who's the man? Poirot closed the locket, slipping it into his pocket. That, doctor, is the question. Monsieur Reed, did you see this trunk before? Thomas shook his head, his glasses glinting. No, I don't. Come up here. It's too dusty. Eyes narrowed. Thomas's voice wavered, just enough to notice. He led the men back downstairs, the locket heavy in his pocket. In the dining hall, the others reported nothing new from the grounds, though Clara mentioned finding a broken rose stem near the stables, its thorns stained dark, blood. Poirot asked, examining the stem she held. Clara shrugged. Maybe, it's hard to tell. The night deepened, and Poirot called for a brief rest, though he knew sleep was impossible. He sat in the library, the locket and photograph before him, his mind weaving connections. Sophia's. Fear Lionel's disappearance, the blackmail letters, they were linked, but the thread eluded him. The scratched-out face in the locket suggested anger, a personal grudge. The blood, the fabric, the glove staged, perhaps to confuse. A soft creak startled him. Clara stood in the doorway, her eyes wide. "Monsieur Poirot, I need to tell you something. I lied earlier." Poirot gestured to a chair. "Speak." "Mademoiselle," she sat, her voice low. "I knew Sophia better than I said. We met at an art show last year. She told me she'd been running from someone for years, someone who knew her real name. She wouldn't say more, but she was scared. That's why I drew her last night. I thought it might help." Poirot leaned forward. "Her real name, did she tell you?" Clara shook her head. "No, but she said it was tied to a mistake. She made something she couldn't undo." Poirot's mind raced. A false name, a past mistake, the locket. He thanked Clara, urging her to rest. Alone again, he examined the locket's photograph under a lamp. The man's scratched-out face hid a truth, he was sure, but whose? As dawn approached, a shout echoed from the garden. Poirot rushed outside. Finding Victor Crane by the hedge, his face pale. "Look," he said, pointing to a patch of earth. A small silver cigarette case lay half buried, engraved with the initials L.B. Lionel. "Blackwood," Poirot murmured, picking it up. Inside was a single cigarette, its tip stained red. Lipstick or blood? The guests gathered, their voices rising. Lady Margaret's face drained of colour. "That's Lionel's case," she whispered. "He always carried it." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Then we are closer to the truth. This case, the locket, the letter, they point to a past that refuses to stay buried. Mise, amiss. We will not rest until Mademoiselle Lyle is found, and the shadows of Blackwood Manor yield their secrets." The morning light did little to ease the tension. Poirot knew the killer or kidnapper was among them, watching, waiting. The puzzle was taking shape, but danger was closer than ever. Chapter 4. The weight of the past. The morning sun struggled through the heavy clouds, casting a pale glow over Blackwood Manor. The air inside was thick with suspicion, every creak of the old house amplifying the unease among the guests. Poirot stood in the library, the silver cigarette case with the initials L.B. in one hand and the gold locket in the other, its scratched-out photograph a silent accusation. Sophia Lyle was still missing, and the clues blot on the wall. A torn photograph, a hidden letter, a stained glove. And now this cigarette case pointed to a tangled web of secrets tied to Lionel Blackwood, Sir Reginald's vanished brother. Poirot's sharp eyes scanned the room, his mind racing to connect the threads. Someone in this house was hiding the truth, and he was determined to uncover it. The guests gathered in the dining hall, their faces etched with exhaustion and fear. Sir Reginald Blackwood sat at the head of the table, his hands trembling as he stared at the cigarette case Poirot had placed before him. Lady Margaret, his wife, gripped her emerald necklace, her green eyes darting between her husband and the detective. Clara Henshaw, the artist, clutched her sketchbook, her fingers smudged with charcoal, her expression haunted. Dr. Arthur Vance leaned back, his grey beard framing a face that betrayed no emotion. Evelyn Marsh, the widow, whispered prayers, her handkerchief twisted into knots. Victor Crane, the businessman, paced near the window, muttering about wasted time, while Beatrice, his wife, watched him with a cold stare. Thomas Reed, the librarian, adjusted his glasses. his hands shaking as he avoided Poirot's gaze. Poirot raised a hand, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Mies, Amos, the puzzle grows clearer, yet more dangerous. This cigarette case, marked with the initials of Lionel Blackwood, was found in the garden, stained with what may be blood or lipstick. The locket, with its defaced photograph, suggests a connection to Mademoiselle Lyle's past. The letter threatening Sir Reginald speaks of family secrets. These are not separate mysteries, they are one. Someone here knows why Sophia vanished, and I will not rest until I find her. Victor Crane stopped pacing, his face red. This is absurd. A cigarette case proves nothing. For all we know, Sophia dropped it herself, playing some actress's trick. I say we call the police and leave this madhouse. Beatrice's voice was sharp. Victor, sit down. Your shouting helps no one. Monsieur Poirot, what do you plan to do next? Poirot's moustache twitched. Madame Crane, I plan to unravel the truth, thread by thread. Each of you will now tell me of your connection to Mademoiselle Lyle or Lionel Blackwood. No detail is too small. Begin, Sir Reginald. Sir Reginald's voice was hoarse. I told you, Lionel was my brother, charming but reckless. He knew Sophia from a party in London a year ago, before he disappeared. I invited her here hoping she might know something about him. I swear, that's all. Lady Margaret's lips tightened. Reginald, you invited her without telling me. How many secrets are you keeping? Poirot's eyes gleamed. And you, Madame Blackwood, did you know Mademoiselle Lyle before this weekend? Lady Margaret hesitated, her fingers tightening on her necklace. I met her once, at that same party. She was captivating, but I didn't trust her. Actresses are always performing, aren't they? Poirot nodded, turning to Dr. Vance, and you, Doctor. Dr. Vance's voice was steady. I never met Sophia before this dinner, nor Lionel. My only connection to this house is Sir Reginald's invitation as an old friend from his university days. Clara's voice trembled as she spoke next. I told you, Monsieur Poirot, I met Sophia at an art show. She was kind, but haunted. She never mentioned Lionel, but she spoke of someone from her past, someone she feared. I thought she was being dramatic. Evelyn Marsh's eyes were wide. I only spoke to Sophia briefly, here at the manor. She seemed nervous, always looking over her shoulder. That locket, she held it like it was her lifeline. Victor Crane shrugged. Never met her before this weekend. Never heard of Lionel, either. I'm here because Sir Reginald promised a business deal, nothing more. Beatrice's tone was curt, same as Victor. I don't know Sophia or Lionel. I barely know this house. Thomas Reed stammered, I didn't know Sophia well. I saw her at a library event once, but we barely spoke. Lionel, I only know his name from Sir Reginald's stories. Poirot paced, his shoes clicking on the floor. Mercy, your words are noted, but words are not enough. We must search again, focusing on the places where secrets hide the attic. The stables and the rooms of this house. Sir Reginald, you will show me your study. The rest, pair up and search the upper floors. The guests grumbled but obeyed. Poirot followed Sir Reginald to his study, a small room lined with books and papers, a heavy desk at its center. The air smelled of ink and cigar smoke. Poirot's eyes scanned the desk, noticing a locked drawer. Sir Reginald, open this. Sir Reginald fumbled with the key, revealing a stack of letters tied with string. Poirot untied them, scanning the pages. Each one demanded money, signed only with a cryptic L. The handwriting matched the letter Clara had found behind the book. "These are from your brother?" Poirot asked. Sir Reginald nodded, his face pale. "I thought so, but I'm not sure anymore. The tone is different, angrier." Poirot tucked the letters into his pocket. "We will compare them later. Now, the stables." Outside, the air was damp, the ground muddy from last night's rain. The stables were old, their wooden beams sagging. Poirot noticed the broken rose stem Clara had found, its thorns still dark with what might be blood. He knelt, examining the ground nearby. A faint trail of disturbed earth led to a corner of the stable, where a loose board concealed a small space. Inside was a silk scarf, embroidered with the initials Estel. "Mademoiselle Lyle," Poirot murmured, holding the scarf to the light. It smelled faintly of perfume jasmine, like Sophia wore. He slipped it into his pocket, his mind racing. A hiding place, or a plant. Back inside, the guests reported their findings. Clara held up a small key, found under a rug in a guest room. "It's tiny, like for a jewelry box," she said, her voice shaking. Dr. Vance produced a broken pen, its tip stained with ink, found near the attic stairs. Evelyn whispered about a cold draught in the west wing, as if a window had been left open. Victor and Beatrice found nothing, though Victor complained loudly about the dust. Poirot gathered them in the dining hall. The locket, cigarette case, scarf, and key laid out before him. "These objects tell a story," he said. "The key, perhaps, opens the locket. The scarf belongs to Mademoiselle Lyle. The cigarette case ties to Lionel. But why are they scattered, as if to lead us astray?" Lady Margaret's voice was sharp. "You think someone's playing a game with us?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Oui, madame, a dangerous game. We must test the key." He picked up the locket, inserting the tiny key Clara had found. It clicked, revealing a second compartment behind the photograph. Inside was a folded note, its edges worn. Poirot unfolded it, reading aloud. "Meet me at midnight, by the oak. You owe me." The guests gasped. Thomas Reed's face paled, and Clara gripped her sketchbook. Poirot's mind whirred. This note was written to Mademoiselle Lyle. "The oak there is a large tree in the garden, Nan." Sir Reginald nodded. "Yes, the old oak by the fountain. It's been there for centuries." "We will examine it," Poirot said. "But first, Mademoiselle Henshaw, your sketchbook. May I see it again?" Clara hesitated, then handed it over. Poirot flipped through, stopping at a sketch of the oak tree, its branches heavy with leaves. In the drawing, a figure stood beneath. It blurred, but wearing a dress like Sophia's. "When did you draw this?" Poirot asked. Clara swallowed. "Last evening, before dinner, I saw Sophia in the garden, near the oak. She looked nervous." Poirot nodded, returning the sketchbook. "Mercy, we go to the oak now." The group trudged to the garden, the air cold and heavy. The oak loomed, its gnarled branches casting shadows. Poirot circled it, his eyes scanning the ground. Near the base, he found a small patch of disturbed earth, as if recently dug. He knelt, digging with his hands, and unearthed a leather pouch. Inside was a single earring, pearl and gold, matching one Sophia had worn at dinner. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered. "She was here, but why?" Dr. Vance examined the earring. No blood, no damage. It could have fallen off, or been placed. Poirot stood, his mind racing. The earring, the note, the scarf, too many clues, too neatly found. A trap, perhaps, to distract from the truth. He turned to the guests, their faces pale in the morning. Light, someone is leading us, like puppets on strings. But Hercule Poirot is no puppet. We return to the house, and I will speak to each of you again. The interviews resumed in the library, each guest questioned alone. Clara admitted seeing Sophia near the oak, but swore she'd told no one. Dr. Vance claimed he'd been in his room, reading, when Sophia vanished. Evelyn repeated her story of the locket, adding that Sophia had whispered about a debt during dinner. Victor and Beatrice stuck to their story of knowing nothing, though Beatrice's eyes lingered on. The cigarette case. Thomas Reed stammered, saying he'd seen a shadow near the oak that night, but thought it was a servant. As night fell, Poirot sat alone, the clues spread before him. The locket's note suggested a meeting, the earring a struggle, the scarf a connection to Sophia. The cigarette case pointed to Lionel. But was he alive, or was someone using his name? The blood on the wall gnawed at him too little for a murder, too much for an accident. A sudden scream shattered the silence. Poirot rushed to the hall, finding Evelyn Marsh crumpled on the floor, her face white. A face, she gasped. At the window a man's face, watching me. Poirot ran to the window, but the garden was empty, the night swallowing any trace. He helped Evelyn to a chair, his mind alight. A man's face, Lionel, or another player in this deadly game. The guests gathered, their voices rising in panic. Poirot raised a hand. Calm yourselves. We are close to the truth, but danger is closer. No one leaves this room tonight. The shadows of Blackwood Manor are watching, but so is Hercule Poirot. The night stretched on, the manor a maze of secrets. Poirot knew the killer or kidnapper was among them, their moves calculated, but not perfect. The puzzle was almost complete, but one wrong step could unravel everything. Chapter 5. The Whisper of Truth. The night pressed heavily against Blackwood Manor, its walls groaning under the weight of secrets. The dining hall, lit by flickering candles, felt like a stage where every guest played a part in a deadly drama. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, his sharp eyes darting from face to face, each one a mask hiding truths or lies. Sophia Lyle's disappearance was now a full day old, and the clues a scrap of red fabric, a smear of blood, a torn photograph, a gold locket, a silk scarf, a cigarette case marked LB, a tiny key, a pearl earring, and a cryptic note wove. A tapestry of mystery. Evelyn Marsh's scream about a man's face at the window still echoed in the air, tightening the knot of fear. Poirot knew the truth was close, but so was danger. The guests sat around the oak table, their faces pale and drawn. Sir Reginald Blackwood gripped his wineglass, his knuckles white, his silver hair falling into his eyes. Lady Margaret, his wife, sat rigid, her emerald necklace catching the candlelight like a warning. Clara Henshaw, the artist, clutched her sketchbook, her charcoal-stained fingers trembling. Dr. Arthur Vance, the doctor, leaned back, his grey beard framing a face as unreadable as stone. Evelyn Marsh, the widow, whispered prayers, her handkerchief shredded from nervous twisting. Victor Crane, the businessman, slouched, his red face flushed with irritation, while Beatrice, his wife, watched him with a cold, calculating stare. Thomas Reed, the librarian, pushed his glasses up his nose, his hands fidgeting as if longing for escape. Poirot raised a hand, his voice steady but sharp. Mies Amos, the hour is late, and the shadows grow long. Mademoiselle Lyle is still missing, and each clue we find, the locket, the earring, the cigarette case, points to a truth buried in this house. Madame Marsh saw a face at the window. This is no ghost, but a man, perhaps the key to our puzzle. I ask now, has anyone seen or heard anything since our last search? Speak, for silence protects only the guilty. The room was quiet, the fires, crackle the only sound. Victor Crane broke the silence, his voice loud. This is madness, Poirot. A face at the window. Probably a servant, or Evelyn's imagination running wild. I'm tired of this game. Let's call the police and be done. Beatrice's eyes flashed. Victor, enough. Your whining solves nothing. Monsieur Poirot, I saw no face, but I did hear footsteps in the hall last night, after we searched the attic. They were quick, like someone running. Poirot's mustache twitched. Mercy, Madame Crane. Footsteps are a clue, perhaps of our mysterious visitor. And you, mademoiselle. Henshaw, your sketches have been most revealing. Clara's cheeks flushed. I drew something else last night, after Evelyn's scream. I couldn't sleep, so I sketched what I remembered from the garden. She opened her sketchbook, revealing a drawing of the oak tree, its branches, heavy, and a shadowy figure beneath it, holding something smaller box. Perhaps Poirot studied the sketch, his mind racing. When did you see this figure, mademoiselle? Clara hesitated. It was just before dinner when I saw Sophia by the oak. I didn't think much of it then, but after the scream it felt important. Poirot nodded, turning to Evelyn. Madame Marsh, describe this face you saw. Evelyn's voice trembled. It was pale, with dark eyes, and scar, I think, across the cheek. It was only a moment, but it frightened me. Poirot's eyes gleamed. A scar, a new piece of the puzzle. He addressed the group. We must act swiftly. The face, the footsteps, the figure in the garden, they suggest someone moves unseen in this house. We will search again, but first, I wish to examine the west wing, where Madame Marsh felt a draught. Sir Reginald, lead the way. Sir Reginald stood, his face weary. The group followed him through the manor's winding halls, the air growing colder as they reached the west wing. The corridor was lined with faded portraits, their eyes seeming to follow the group. Poirot paused at a narrow window, its latch loose, the glass streaked with rain. He pushed it open, peering into the garden below. The ground was muddy, but a faint trail of footprints led to a low wall. Curio, Poirot murmured, noting the prints size larger than the one beneath the parlour window, suggesting a man's shoe. He turned to Sir Reginald. This window was... It opened last night. Sir Reginald frowned. I don't know. The staff should check these things. Poirot's gaze sharpened. And yet, it is open. Someone has used this as an entry or an exit. He led the group to a nearby room, its door slightly ajar. Inside was a small study, its desk covered with papers. Poirot sifted through them, finding a ledger marked with dates and sums of money, some labelled L. He held it up. Sir Reginald, explain this. Sir Reginald's face paled. It's old accounts, from when Lionel was here. He borrowed money, often. I kept track to avoid arguments. Poirot's eyes narrowed, and these recent entries dated this year. Lionel has been gone, Nan. Sir Reginald stammered. I must have made a mistake. Poirot tucked the ledger under his arm. Mistakes, Sir Reginald, are rarely so convenient. We move to the oak tree now. The group trudged to the garden, the night air sharp with the scent of wet earth. The oak loomed, its branches casting eerie shadows. Poirot knelt by the spot where he'd found the pearl earring, his fingers brushing the soil. He uncovered a small metal box, its lid rusted but intact. Inside was a folded letter, its ink smudged but readable. "You can't run forever, Sophia. I know who you are. Pay or I tell." Poirot's pulse quickened. Another blackmail note, this one addressed to Sophia. He showed it to the group, watching their faces. Clara gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Lady Margaret's eyes widened, and Dr. Vance's jaw tightened. Evelyn whispered a prayer, while Victor muttered about more nonsense. Beatrice stared at the letter, her face unreadable. "This note," Poirot said, "confirms Mademoiselle Lyle was running from someone. The initials LB on the cigarette case suggests Lionel, but the face Madame Marsh saw a man with a scarmé point elsewhere." We returned to the house. "I must speak to each of you alone again." Back in the library, Poirot conducted private interviews, his questions sharp. Sir Reginald admitted to paying small sums to the blackmailer, hoping to protect his families. Name, Lady Margaret confessed she'd overheard Sophia arguing with someone on the phone before dinner, her voice angry. Clara revealed she'd seen Sophia hide the metal box under the oak, but swore she hadn't touched it. Dr. Vance claimed no knowledge of the note, though his calm demeanor seemed forced. Evelyn repeated her story of the scarred face, adding that it reminded her of a man she'd seen in town years ago. Victor denied everything, his temper flaring, while Beatrice admitted to noticing Sophia's locket, which she'd seen her clutch tightly. Thomas Reed stammered, saying he'd found a book in the library with a note tucked inside, but he'd been too scared to show it. Poirot asked to see the book. Thomas led him to the library, pulling a worn volume from a shelf. Inside was a scrap of paper with a single word: midnight. Poirot's mind raced. The note from the locket mentioned a midnight meeting. Was this a confirmation or another distraction? As the interviews ended, a crash echoed from the hall. Poirot rushed out, finding a shattered vase on the floor, its pieces scattered. Clara stood nearby, her face white. I bumped it," she said. "I was looking for my pencil." Poirot knelt, examining the shards. Among them was a small folded note, its edges singed. He unfolded it, reading, "The truth is in the cellar. Find her before it's too late." The guests gasped. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The cellar, we have not searched there. Sir Reginald, lead us." The cellar door was heavy, its hinges creaking as Sir Reginald pushed it open. The air was damp, smelling of stone and mould. Poirot descended, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. Crates and barrels lined the walls, but in a far corner he found a locked door, its wood scratched as if clawed at. "The key," Poirot said, holding up the tiny key Clara had found. It fit perfectly, the lock clicking open. Inside was a small room, empty except for a single chair and a blood-stained shawl. Poirot's heart sank. No Sophia, but the shawl was hers, the jasmine scent faint but unmistakable. "Mon Dieu," he whispered. She was here. The guests crowded behind him, their voices rising. Lady Margaret clutched her necklace, her face pale. Clara sobbed, her sketchbook falling to the floor. Dr. Vance examined the shawl, confirming the blood was fresh, less than a day old. Evelyn prayed louder, while Victor shouted about calling the police. Beatrice stood silent, her eyes fixed on the shawl. Poirot turned to the group. his voice cold. Someone brought Mademoiselle Lyle here. Someone locked this door. The truth is close, but so is the danger. No one leaves this house until we find her fate. The night wore on, the manor a maze of shadows and lies. Poirot sat in the library, the clues before him. The locket, the cigarette case, the scarf, the earring, the notes. The scarred man at the window haunted his thoughts. Was it Lionel, alive and vengeful, or another using his name? The cellar room suggested captivity, but the empty chair mocked him. He knew the answer lay in the guest's secrets, and he would not rest until he uncovered them. As dawn broke, a faint noise tap, like a stone against glass, came from the window. Poirot rose, peering into the garden. Nothing, but the air felt heavy, as if the manor itself was holding its breath. The game was far from over, and Poirot sensed the next move would be the deadliest yet. Chapter 6. The unseen hand. The faint dawn light seeped through the heavy curtains of Blackwood Manor, casting a ghostly pallor over the dining hall where Hercule Poirot stood, his sharp eyes fixed on the weary guests. The air was thick with dread, each creak of the old house amplifying the tension. Sophia Lyle, the actress whose vibrant presence had lit the room only 2 nights ago, remained missing, and the discovery of the blood-stained shawl in the cellar's locked room had turned suspicion into near panic. The clues: a scrap of red fabric, a smear of blood, a torn photograph, a gold locket, a silk scarf, a cigarette case marked LB, a tiny key, a pearl earring, blackmail notes, and now the shawl painted a picture of deception and danger. The mysterious tapping at the window, heard just before dawn, lingered in Poirot's mind, a signal of an unseen hand guiding this deadly game. The guests sat around the oak table, their faces etched with exhaustion. Sir Reginald Blackwood, the host, stared blankly at his hands, his silver hair dishevelled. Lady Margaret, his wife, clutched her emerald necklace, her green eyes cold but wary. Clara Henshaw, the artist, held her sketchbook like a shield, her fingers trembling. Dr. Arthur Vance, the doctor, sat upright, his grey beard framing a face that gave nothing away. Evelyn Marsh, the widow, whispered prayers, her shredded handkerchief a testament to her fear. Victor Crane, the businessman, slouched, his red face flushed with anger, while Beatrice, his wife, watched him with a tight-lipped stare. Thomas Reed, the librarian, adjusted his glasses, his nervous hands betraying his calm facade. Poirot raised a hand, his voice cutting through the heavy silence. Mies, Amos, we stand at a crossroads. The shawl in the cellar tells us Mademoiselle Lyle was held there, perhaps harmed. The notes, the locket, the cigarette case, they point to a past that binds this house to secrets. The tapping at the window suggests we are not alone. Someone here or nearby knows the truth. I ask now, has anyone heard or seen anything since we found the shawl? Speak, for the truth cannot hide forever. The fire crackled, the only sound for a moment. Victor Crane broke the silence, his voice booming. This is lunacy, Poirot. A shawl, a tap at the window, what does it prove? Sophia's probably run off, laughing at us. I'm done with this charade. Call the police, let them sort it. Beatrice's tone was sharp. Victor, your temper helps no one. Monsieur Poirot, I heard nothing last night, but I did notice a light flickering in the west wing, near that open window you found. It was brief, like a candle. Poirot's moustache twitched. A light, Madame Crane. Most interesting. And you, Mademoiselle Henshaw, Your sketches have been a window to the truth. Clara's voice wavered. I drew something after we found the shawl. It was just a feeling, but I couldn't shake it. She opened her sketchbook, revealing a sketch of the cellar door, its scratches stark against the wood. A shadowy hand reached from the darkness, holding a key. Poirot studied the drawing, his mind racing. When did you draw this, mademoiselle? Clara swallowed. Last night, after we came back from the cellar. I couldn't sleep. The door. It felt alive, like it was hiding something. Poirot nodded, turning to Evelyn Marsh. Madame, you spoke of a scarred face at the window. Have you seen it again, or anything else? Evelyn's eyes widened. No face, but I heard a whisper just before the tapping. It was faint, like a man's voice, saying soon. I thought it was my imagination, but now I'm not sure. Poirot's eyes gleamed. A whisper, a light, a shadowy hand there. Pieces were aligning, but the picture remained blurred. He addressed the group. We must search again, with fresh eyes. The cellar holds more secrets, I am certain. We will also examine the west wing for this light Madame Crane saw. Sir Reginald, you will show me to the cellar again. The rest, pair up and search the west wing. The guests murmured but complied. Poirot followed Sir Reginald down the creaking cellar stairs, the air damp and heavy with mould. The locked room was as they'd left it, the chair solitary, the blood-stained shawl now in Poirot's possession. He examined the walls, his flashlight revealing faint scratches near the floor, as if someone had clawed at the stone. He knelt, finding a loose brick. Behind it was a small cavity containing a folded cloth handkerchief, embroidered with the initials SL, and stained with a dark spot. Mademoiselle Lyle, Poirot murmured, slipping the handkerchief into his pocket. The jasmine scent was faint, but unmistakable. He turned to Sir Reginald. This room was used to hold her, but why move her? And where Sir Reginald's face was ashen. I don't know, Poirot. This house, it's full of ghosts. Lionel, Sophia maybe, they're both gone for good. Poirot's gaze sharpened. Ghosts do not leave handkerchiefs, Sir Reginald. Someone living does. We return upstairs. In the west wing, the guests reported their findings. Clara held up a candle. Stub, its wick blackened, found near the open window. It was under a table, she said. It's still warm. Dr. Vance produced a torn piece of paper found in a fireplace, its edges charred. The fragment bore a single word, trust. Evelyn mentioned a cold draught again, stronger this time, as if a door had been opened. Victor and Beatrice found nothing, though Victor grumbled about the cold. Thomas Reed hesitated, then admitted to finding a small button, brass and polished. Near the window, Poirot examined the button, noting its size too small for a man's coat, perhaps from a woman's dress or jacket. Merci, Monsieur Reed. This may be significant. He gathered the group in the dining hall, laying out the new clues. The handkerchief, the candle stub, the paper fragment, the button. These suggest movement, secrecy, a plan. The candle confirms Madame Crane's light. The handkerchief ties to Mademoiselle Lyle. The word trust, a message or a taunt. Lady Margaret's voice was cold. You think someone's toying with us, Poirot, leading us like rats in a maze. Poirot nodded. Oui, madame, but rats can outsmart traps. We must test the cellar again, and the grounds near the west wing. Dr. Vance, Monsieur Reed, you will join me in the cellar. The rest, search the garden. The cellar search yielded little more. but Poirot noticed a faint seam in the wall, hidden behind a crate. He pushed, and a panel slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel. The air was stale, the floor littered with dust. Poirot's flashlight caught a glint, a single hairpin, gold, like one Sophia wore. She was taken this way, he said, his voice low. But to where? The tunnel was too cramped to explore fully, but Poirot marked its entrance, determined to return with tools. Back upstairs, the garden search brought a new discovery. Beatrice held up a small vial, half buried near the west wing's wall. "It smells like medicine," she said, handing it to Dr. Vance. Dr. Vance sniffed it, his face grim. "Chloroform. Not much, but enough to subdue someone." Poirot's pulse quickened. Chloroform, the shawl, the hairpin, the tunnel had been drugged and moved. Perhaps alive, perhaps not. He turned to the group, their faces pale in the morning light. Mademoiselle Lyle was taken, not vanished. Someone used this tunnel, this vial. We are close, mes amis, but the danger is closer. The morning passed in tense interviews. Poirot questioned each guest alone in the library, probing for cracks in their stories. Sir Reginald admitted to exploring the cellar years ago, but claimed no knowledge of the tunnel. Lady Margaret confessed to suspecting Lionel's death, not disappearance, but had no proof. Clara revealed she'd seen Sophia with the hairpin, pinning her hair before dinner. Dr. Vance denied using chloroform, though his medical bag contained similar vials. Evelyn spoke of hearing a muffled cry the night Sophia vanished, but thought it a dream. Victor blustered, denying everything, while Beatrice admitted to noticing a strange smell chemical she thought near the west wing. Thomas Reed stammered, saying he'd read about secret passages in old manors, but never seen one. As noon approached, a shout came from the garden. Clara ran in, her face white, holding a torn gloved red silk, matching the scrap Poirot had found in the parlour. "It was by the tunnel's exit," she said, "near the hedge." Poirot examined the glove, noting a faint stain blood, or perhaps mud. "This confirms the tunnel's use. We must explore it fully. Sir Reginald, find tools to clear the way." The tunnel search was slow, the air thick with dust. Poirot led, his flashlight revealing rough stone walls and a low ceiling. The passage ended at a trapdoor, locked from above. Sir Reginald's crowbar pried it open, revealing a small shed in the garden, hidden by overgrown ivy. Inside was a single chair, a rope coiled on the floor, and a faint bloodstain on the wood. "She was here," Poirot said, his voice grim, but moved again. "Why?" The guests gathered, their voices rising in fear. Lady Margaret clutched her necklace, her face pale. Clara sobbed, her sketchbook forgotten. Dr. Vance examined the blood, confirming it was fresh, like the shawls. Evelyn prayed, while Victor shouted about leaving. Beatrice stood silent, her eyes on the rope. Poirot raised a hand. "Calm yourselves. The truth is near, but we must be precise. The glove, the rope, the chloroform, they point to a plan, not a whim. Someone among us knows where Mademoiselle Lyle is. Speak, or the next clue may be her end." The day faded into evening, the manor a labyrinth of lies. Poirot sat in the library, the clues before him, the locket, the cigarette case, the scarf, the earring, the notes, the shawl, the handkerchief, the glove, the scarred man, the tunnel, the shaded pieces of a puzzle he was close to solving. But one wrong move, and the unseen hand would strike again, that as night fell. A faint cry muffled desperate echoed from somewhere deep in the house. Poirot sprang to his feet, his heart racing. "She lives," he said, rushing toward the sound. The game was not over, but the stakes had never been higher. Chapter 7. The cry in the dark, the faint, desperate cry that pierced the night, sent a jolt through Blackwood Manor, shattering the tense silence that had gripped the dining hall. Hercule Poirot, his sharp eyes blazing with purpose, was already moving toward the sound, his polished shoes clicking swiftly on the polished floor. The guests, frozen in their seats, exchanged wide-eyed glances, their faces pale with fear. Sophia Lyle, missing for nearly 2 days, was alive, or so the cry suggested. The clues: a scrap of red fabric, a smear of blood, a torn photograph, a gold locket, a silk scarf, a cigarette case marked LB, a tiny key, a pearl earring, blackmail notes, a blood-stained shawl, a handkerchief, a red glove, and a vial of chloroform pointed to a carefully orchestrated plot. The discovery of the secret tunnel and the shed with its blood-stained floor had tightened the web of suspicion. And now this cry offered a glimmer of hope, but also danger. Poirot knew the unseen hand guiding this mystery was close, watching, waiting. The guests scrambled to their feet, their voices rising in a chaotic mix of panic and urgency. Sir Reginald Blackwood, his silver hair wild, clutched the table's edge, his face drained of colour. Lady Margaret, his wife, stood rigid, her emerald necklace glinting like a cold flame, her green eyes narrowed. Clara Henshaw, the artist, dropped, her sketchbook, her charcoal-stained hands trembling. Dr. Arthur Vance. The doctor remained calm, his grey beard framing a face that betrayed no emotion. Evelyn Marsh, the widow, clutched her tattered handkerchief, her prayers now a frantic whisper. Victor Crane, the businessman, bellowed about ghosts and nonsense, while Beatrice, his wife, silenced him with a sharp glare. Thomas Reed, the librarian, adjusted his glasses, his nervous hands betraying his fear. Poirot raised a hand, his voice cutting through the clamour. Mies, Amos, silence. The cry came from within this house, perhaps below or above. We must move. Quickly, but with method. Mademoiselle Lyle lives, but her life hangs by a thread. Sir Reginald, you know this manor best. Where could that sound have come from? Sir Reginald's voice shook. The East Wing, perhaps. There's an old servants' quarters there, rarely used. The walls are thick, but sound carries oddly. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. Then we go to the East Wing. Dr. Vance. Monsieur Reed, you will come with me. The rest, stay here and guard the exits. No one leaves this house. Victor Crane's face reddened. Guard the exits. I'm not a jailer. This is your mess, Poirot. Fix it. Beatrice's tone was icy. Victor, do as he says. If Sophia's hurt, we can't risk someone slipping away. Poirot led Dr. Vance and Thomas Reed through the manor's dim corridors, the air growing colder as they reached the East Wing. The servants' quarters were a maze of narrow halls and small rooms, their doors warped with age. The cry had been faint, muffled, as if trapped behind stone. Poirot's flashlight swept the shadows, his ears straining for any sound. At the end of a hall, a heavy door stood slightly ajar, its hinges rusted. He pushed it open, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. The cellars again, Dr. Vance asked, his voice steady but tense. Nan, Poirot said, his eyes narrowing. This is different. A secondary cellar, perhaps, hidden from the main one. He descended, the air growing damp and heavy with the scent of earth. The stairs ended at a low-ceilinged room, its walls lined with crumbling shelves. In the corner, a pile of crates obscured a small door, its wood scratched and splintered. Poirot's pulse quickened. "Here," he said, moving the crates with Thomas's help. The door was locked, but the tiny key Clara had found fit perfectly. It clicked open, revealing a cramped chamber. The air was stale, thick with the smell of Jasmine Sophia's perfume. On the floor lay a single shoe, a woman's, its heel broken. Poirot knelt, examining it. Mademoiselle Lyle was here, he said, his voice low, but moved again. "Why?" Thomas Reed's voice trembled. This feels like a tomb." Dr. Vance's eyes scanned the room. No blood, no signs of struggle. She was taken quickly or willingly. Poirot's moustache twitched. "Willingly." "Nan, doctor, the chloroform vial suggests otherwise. We must find where this trail leads." He noticed a faint scratch on the wall, a crude arrow pointing to the left. Following it, he found a loose panel, barely visible. He pushed, revealing another tunnel, narrower than the one in the main cellar. "Mon Dieu," he whispered. "This house is a labyrinth." The tunnel was too tight for all three to enter, so Poirot went alone, his flashlight cutting through the dark. The passage twisted, its walls damp and slick. After several minutes, it opened into a small chamber beneath the east wing, empty, except for a single object, a torn page from a book, its edges singed. Poirot picked it up, reading the handwritten words. "You can't hide forever." "I know." He slipped a page into his pocket, his mind racing. Another note, another taunt. The unseen hand was playing a game, leaving clues to taunt or mislead. He returned to the others, his face grim. "We have found another piece, but the puzzle is not complete." We returned to the others. Back in the dining hall, the guests were restless, their eyes darting to the windows. Poirot laid the shoe and the torn page on the table, alongside the other clues. Mademoiselle Lyle was held in the east wing cellar, but moved again. This note, like the others, speaks of knowledge someone knows her secrets. "I ask now, who among you has been in the east wing before tonight?" Lady Margaret's voice was sharp. "The east wing is closed off. Only the staff go there to clean, and rarely." Clara hesitated, then spoke. I explored it yesterday, before dinner. I was looking for quiet to sketch. I didn't see anything strange." Poor eyes gleamed. "And yet, mademoiselle, you did not mention this before." "Why?" Clara's cheeks flushed. "I didn't think it mattered. I was only there for a moment." Poirot turned to the group. "We must search the east wing fully, room by room. Sir Reginald, you will guide us. The rest, stay close." The east wing was a warren of dusty rooms, their furniture draped in sheets. Poirot's flashlight swept over cobwebs and faded wallpaper, his eyes catching every detail. In a small bedroom, he found a hairpin identical to the one from the tunnel. Nearby, a floorboard creaked underfoot, revealing a hollow space. Poirot pried it open, uncovering a small diary, its cover worn. He opened it, scanning the pages. The handwriting was Sophia's, detailing her fear of a man from the past who knew her real name, Clara Duval. The final entry, dated the day before the dinner, read, "He's here. I saw him. I have to run." Poirot's heart raced. Clara Duval, Sophia's real name. The locket, the notes, the ferret, all pointed to a past she'd tried to bury. He showed the diary to the group, watching their reactions. Clara Henshaw gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Lady Margaret's eyes widened, and Dr. Vance's jaw tightened. Evelyn whispered a prayer, while Victor muttered about more drama. Beatrice stared at the diary, her face unreadable. "This diary," Poirot said, "confirms Mademoiselle Lyle was hiding her true identity. Someone here knew her as Clara Duval. Speak now, or the truth will find you." The silence was heavy. Thomas Reed cleared his throat, his voice barely audible. "I heard her mention that name once, at the library event. I thought it was a stage name." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "And you did not think to share this, Monsieur Reed?" Thomas shrank back. I forgot. It didn't seem important." Poirot paced, the diary in hand. "We are close, Mies, Amos. The east wing, the tunnel, the diary, they point to a plan, a trap. We must search the grounds again, near the shed where the tunnel ends." The garden was dark, the air cold and damp. Poirot led the group to the shed, its ivy-covered walls blending into the night. Inside, he found a new clue, a small knife, its blade stained with dried blood. Dr. Vance examined it, his face grim. "The blood is fresh, less than a day old. Not enough for a fatal wound, but enough to hurt." Poirot's mind whirred. The knife, the shawl, the chaussefire had been injured, moved, perhaps still alive. He turned to the group, their faces pale in the moonlight. Someone used this knife, this tunnel, to control Mademoiselle Lyle. The cry we heard, "She is," near but hidden. We returned to the house. "I will speak to each of you again." The interviews were tense, each guest questioned alone. Sir Reginald admitted to hearing rumours of Sophia's past, but claimed ignorance of her real name. Lady Margaret confessed to suspecting Sophia of manipulating her husband, but denied knowing Clara Duval. Clara Henshaw swore she'd never heard the name, though her trembling hands suggested otherwise. Dr. Vance denied handling the knife, though his medical expertise made him a suspect. Evelyn spoke of seeing a man's shadow in the garden, scar-faced, the night before. Victor blustered, claiming no knowledge, while Beatrice admitted to noticing Sophia's fear at dinner, but nothing more. Thomas Reed stammered, saying he'd seen a man in town, scarred, months ago, but thought it unrelated. As midnight approached, Poirot sat in the library, the clues before him, the locket, the cigarette case, the scarf, the earring, the shawl, the handkerchief, the glove, the knife, the diary, the cry, the scarred man, the name Clara Duval. They pointed to a past collision, a debt unpaid. He was close, but the unseen hand was closer, its next move imminent. A sudden thud echoed from above, like a door slamming. Poirot rushed upstairs, the guests following. In the east wing, a guest room's door swung open, revealing a crumpled figure on the floor. Sophia Lyle, her blonde hair matted, her dress torn, her eyes wide with fear. She was alive, but barely, her wrists bruised from ropes. Poirot knelt beside her, his voice gentle. "Mademoiselle, you are safe." "Who did this?" Sophia's voice was a whisper. He knows who I am. He wants revenge." Before she could say more, her eyes fluttered shut. Dr. Vance rushed forward, checking her pulse. "She's weak, but alive. We need to move her." Poirot stood, his eyes blazing. "The game is not over, Mies Amos. Someone brought her here, left her for us to find. The truth is within our grasp, but the danger is at our door." The night stretched on, Sophia's rescue a fragile victory. Poirot knew the unseen hand was still at play, and the final move would reveal all or destroy. Everything. Chapter 8. The Fragile Truth. The Air in Blackwood. Manor was thick with a mix of relief and dread as the morning light filtered through the heavy curtains of the dining hall. Sophia Lyle, the missing actress, had been found alive but weak, her wrists bruised from ropes, her dress torn, and her whispered words, "He knows who I am. He wants revenge," echoing in Hercule Poirot's mind. The discovery of Sophia in the East Wing, after a desperate cry had led them to her, was a victory, but a fragile one. The clues: a scrap of red fabric, a smear of blood, a torn photograph, a gold locket, a silk scarf, a cigarette case marked LB, a tiny key, a pearl earring, blackmail notes, a blood-stained shawl, a handkerchief, a red glove, a knife, and Sophia's diary revealing her true name. Clara Duval pointed to a plot rooted in a hidden past. The scarred man Evelyn Marsh had seen, the secret tunnel, the chloroform vial, and now Sophia's rescue suggested a mastermind still at large, watching from the shadows. Poirot knew the truth was close, but so was the danger. The guests gathered around the dining hall table, their faces a mix of shock and suspicion. Sophia lay on a sofa, tended by Dr. Arthur Vance, her breathing shallow but steady. Sir Reginald Blackwood sat hunched, his silver hair falling into his eyes, his hands trembling. Lady Margaret, his wife, gripped her emerald necklace, her green eyes flickering with something unspoken, anger or fear. Poirot couldn't yet tell. Clara Henshaw, the artist, clutched her sketchbook, her charcoal-stained fingers still. Evelyn Marsh, the widow, whispered prayers, her shredded handkerchief now a pile of threads. Victor Crane, the businessman, paced, his red face flushed with frustration, while Beatrice, his wife, watched him with a cold stare. Thomas Reed, the librarian, adjusted his glasses, his nervous hands betraying his attempt at calm. Poirot stood at the head of the table, his small frame commanding the room. "Mise et miss," he said, his voice steady but sharp. "Mademoiselle Lyle Clara Duval is alive, but the danger is not past. Her words speak of a man seeking revenge, a man who knows her true name. The clues we have found, the locket, the knife, the notes point to a past that binds her to this house, perhaps to Lionel Blackwood. We must learn who this man is, and why he acts. Mademoiselle Lyle, can you speak?" Sophia's eyes fluttered open, her voice a whisper. He wore a mask, dark eyes, a scar on his cheek. "He said I betrayed him. Long ago." She paused, her breath catching. "I don't know his name, but he knew mine, Clara." Dr. Vance adjusted her blanket, his face grim. "She needs rest, Poirot. She's dehydrated, possibly drugged. The bruises suggest she was bound for hours." Poirot nodded, his mustache twitching. "Merci, doctor. We will let her rest, but time is short." The scarred man Madame Marsh saw him at the window. "We must find him. Sir Reginald, tell me more of Lionel. Could he be this man?" Sir Reginald's voice was hoarse. "Lionel had no scar, not when I last saw him. He was charming, reckless, but not violent. I don't believe he's alive. Those letters, they must be from someone else." Lady Margaret's tone was sharp. "Reginald, you've hidden too much. If Lionel's alive, you should have told me. And if he's not, who's using his name?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "A question most pertinent. Madame, the cigarette case marked LB suggests Lionel, but the scar suggests another. We must search again the East Wing, the tunnel, the shed. Every corner of this house hides a secret." Dr. Vance, Stay with Mademoiselle Lyle. The rest, come with me. Victor Crane snorted. More searching. This is madness. She's found, isn't she? Let's call the police and be done. Beatrice's voice cut like a knife. Victor, for once, think of someone else. Sophia's hurt, and someone's still out there. Monsieur Poirot, I'll help. Poirot led the group to the east wing, where Sophia had been found. The room was small, its walls bare except for a cracked mirror. Poirot examined the floor, finding a faint smear of dirt, as if something had been dragged. He followed it to a closet, its door slightly ajar. Inside was a coil of rope, its ends frayed, and a single button brass, like the one Thomas Reed had found, but with a faint engraving, a lion's head. Hercule Poirot murmured, slipping the button into his pocket. This lion's head does. It means something, Sir Reginald. Sir Reginald's face paled. It was Lionel's. He had buttons made for his jackets, a silly vanity. But he's gone, I swear. Poirot's gaze sharpened. Gone, or hiding. We moved to the tunnel. He led them to the cellar, then through the narrow passage they'd found earlier. The tunnel's damp walls seemed to close in, the air heavy with earth. At the shed's trap door, Poirot found a new clue, a scrap of paper, folded tightly, tucked into a crack. He unfolded it, reading, Clara, you can't escape the past. Midnight, tomorrow. The guests gasped. Clara Henshaw's voice trembled. That's not for me. I'm Clara Henshaw, not Clara Duval, I swear. Poirot studied her, noting the fear in her eyes. Perhaps mademoiselle, but names are slippery things in this house. We returned to the dining hall. Back in the hall, Sophia was sitting up, sipping water under Dr. Vance's care. Poirot laid the new clues to the button and the note on the table. These confirm a connection to Lionel, or someone using his name. The note speaks of tomorrow's midnighter deadline. Perhaps we must learn Mademoiselle Lyle's past. Mademoiselle, can you tell us more? Sophia's voice was weak. I was Clara Duval years ago, before I became Sophia Lyle. I ran. From a man I hurt, someone I loved once. He swore revenge, but I thought he was gone. Then I saw him here, in the garden, the night before the dinner. Poirot's mind raced. This man, describe him, tall, dark hair, a scar across his cheek. He wore a ring, silver, with a lion's head. Poirot's pulse quickened. The lion's head again. He turned to the group. This ring, this scar, they are keys. Has anyone seen such a man, or this ring? Evelyn Marsh spoke softly. I saw a man in town, months ago, with a scar. He was asking about the manor, but I thought nothing of it. Thomas Reed adjusted his glasses. I saw a ring like that at a bookshop in London. The man was buying old maps, including one of this estate. Poirot nodded, his mind weaving threads. We are close, Mies, Amos. The east wing, the tunnel, the shed, they form a path. We must search the grounds again, near the shed's exit, and the manor's upper floors. The search began, the guests moving in pairs. Poirot led Sir Reginald and Lady Margaret to the grounds, where the shed stood hidden by ivy. Near its entrance, he found a faint footprint, larger than the one beneath the parlour window, with a distinct heel marker man's shoe. He followed it to a hedge, where a torn scrap of cloth caught on a thorn. It was dark wool, heavy, like a man's coat. Mon Dieu, Poirot said, holding the cloth. Our scarred man was here. He slipped it into his pocket, noting its faint smell of tobacco similar to the cigarette case. Inside, the upper floors yielded more. Clara found a locket chain, broken, under a hallway rug. "It's like Sophia's," she said, her voice shaking. Beatrice produced a crumpled letter, found in a fireplace, its words barely legible. "Pay, or she dies." Poirot's eyes gleamed. Another threat. The game continues. He gathered the group in the dining hall, laying out the new clues. The cloth, the chain, the letter. The scarred man is real, and he is near. "Mademoiselle Lyle, you said he wants revenge. For what?" Sophia's eyes filled with tears. I broke a promise. Years ago, I left him, took something he valued, a ring, his family's heirloom. I sold it to start my career. He found me, somehow." Poirot nodded, the pieces aligning. "This ring, with the lion's-headed ties to Lionel, perhaps." "Sir Reginald, did your brother have such a ring?" Sir Reginald hesitated. "Yes. It was our father's. Lionel wore it always. If Sophia took it, he'd be furious." Lady Margaret's voice was cold. "You knew this, Reginald, and said nothing. How many lies are we living?" Poirot paced, his mind racing. "We are close, but the scarred man eludes us. We must guard Mademoiselle Lyle tonight. Dr. Vance, you and I will stay with her. The rest, search your rooms for anything out of place." The night was tense, Sophia sleeping fitfully under Dr. Vance's watch. Poirot sat in the library, the clues before him, the locket, the cigarette case, the scarf, the earring, the shawl, the handkerchief, the glove, the knife, the diary, the button, the cloth, the chain, the letter, the lion's head ring, the scarred man, Clara Duval's past. They pointed to a vendetta, but whose a sudden crash broke the silence, coming from the east wing. Poirot rushed upstairs, finding a window shattered, glass scattered across the floor. Outside, in the moonlight, a figure ran toward the trees, a man, tall, his face hidden. Poirot's heart raced. "The scarred man," he shouted, but the figure vanished into the night. The guests gathered, their voices rising in panic. Clara sobbed, her sketchbook forgotten. Lady Margaret clutched her necklace, her face pale. Evelyn prayed, while Victor shouted about intruders. Beatrice stood silent, her eyes on the broken glass. Poirot raised a hand. "Calm yourselves. He was here, but he is gone for now. We have Sophia, but the danger remains. Tomorrow we will find him, or he will find us." Hercule Poirot does not fail. The night stretched on, the manor a fortress of fear. Poirot knew the scarred man was the key, his revenge driving the game. The truth was within reach, but one misstep could cost everything. Chapter 9. The Lion's Shadow. The dawn broke over Blackwood Manor, its weak light filtering through the mist that clung to the ancient oaks outside. The air inside the dining hall was heavy with fear and exhaustion, the guests' faces pale as they sat around the oak table, their eyes darting to the windows where a mysterious figure, a tall man with a scarred face, had been glimpsed the previous night, fleeing into the darkness after a window shattered in the east wing. Sophia Lyle, found alive but weak, lay on a sofa, her breathing steady under Dr. Arthur Vance's care. Her whispered confession that she was Clara Duval, pursued by a man seeking revenge for a stolen lion's head ring, had cast a new shadow over the mystery. The clues: a scrap of red fabric, a smear of blood, a torn photograph, a gold locket, a silk scarf, a cigarette case marked LB, a tiny key, a pearl earring, blackmail notes, a blood-stained shawl, a handkerchief, a red glove, a knife, a diary, a brass button, a dark wool cloth, a broken locket chain, and a threatening letter pointed to a vendetta tied to Lionel Blackwood, Sir Reginald's missing brother. Hercule Poirot, his sharp eyes gleaming with purpose, knew the scarred man was the key, and time was running out to unmask him. The guests were a study in tension. Sir Reginald Blackwood sat slumped, his silver hair dishevelled, his hands gripping the table as if anchoring himself to reality. Lady Margaret, his wife, stood rigid, her emerald necklace a cold spark against her pale skin, her green eyes hiding something, anger, fear, or guilt. Clara Henshaw, the artist, clutched her sketchbook, her charcoal-stained fingers trembling as if they longed to draw the truth. Dr. Vance watched Sophia, his grey beard framing a face that remained unreadable. Evelyn Marsh, the widow, whispered prayers, her shredded handkerchief now a pile of threads on the table. Victor Crane, the businessman, paced, his red face flushed with frustration, muttering about wasted time. Beatrice, his wife, sat still, her lips a thin line, her eyes sharp with calculation. Thomas Reed, the librarian, adjusted his glasses, his nervous hands betraying his quiet demeanour. Poirot raised a hand, his voice cutting through the heavy air like a blade. Mies Amos, we have found Mademoiselle Lyle, but the danger remains. The scarred man, seen last night, is no phantom, he is real, and he seeks revenge. Mademoiselle Lyle, or Clara Duval, has told us of a stolen ring, a lion's head tied to her past. The cigarette case, the button, the notes they suggest Lionel Blackwood, or someone using his name. We must learn who this man is, and where he hides. Mademoiselle Lyle, can you tell us more? Sophia's eyes fluttered open, her voice weak. But clear he found me in London, months ago. He sent letters, demanding the ring back. I didn't have it, I sold it years ago. He said I'd pay with my life. His scar, it wasn't there when I knew him. She paused, her breath catching. He called himself L, but I don't know if it's Lionel. Poirot's moustache twitched. Mercy, mademoiselle. This L he is our quarry. The lion's head ring, the initials LB. They point to a connection. Sir Reginald, you said the ring was your father's, passed to Lionel. Could he have survived, scarred, and returned? Sir Reginald's face paled. I don't know. Lionel was reckless, but not cruel. If he's alive, why hide? Why torment us? Lady Margaret's voice was sharp. Reginald, you've kept too many secrets. If Lionel's alive, you should have known. And if he's not, who's using his ring, his name? Poirot nodded, his mind racing. A question we must answer. The shattered window, the footprints, the cloth they tell us. This man moves freely, in and out of the manor. We must search again, focusing on the east wing and the grounds near the shed. Dr. Vance, remain with Mademoiselle Lyle. Sir Reginald, Madame Blackwood, you will come with me. The rest, search the upper floors in pairs. Victor Crane snorted. More searching. This is a circus. Sophia's safe, isn't she? Let's call the police and end this nonsense. Beatrice's tone was icy. Victor, your complaining solves nothing. Monsieur Poirot, I'll search with Clara. Let's move. Poirot led Sir Reginald and Lady Margaret to the east wing, where the shattered windows still gaped, glass scattered. Across the floor, he examined the frame, noting a faint scratch on the latch, as if forced open. Outside, the muddy ground held new footprints large, with the same distinct heel mark as before. They led to a dense thicket near the manor's wall, where Poirot found a discarded cigarette, its tip stained with red lipstick or blood. He couldn't yet tell. Curio, Poirot murmured, slipping the cigarette into his pocket. This matches the cigarette case. Our man is careless, or he wants us to follow. Lady Margaret's voice trembled. You think he's taunting us? Why? Poirot's eyes gleamed. To control the game, madame. But Hercule Poirot plays by his own. Rules come, we check the shed. The shed, hidden by ivy, was as they'd left it: a chair, a rope, a bloodstain on the floor. Poirot noticed a new detail, a faint smudge on the wall, like a handprint, but too small for a man's. He knelt, examining it closely. A woman's hand, perhaps, he said, his voice low, or a deliberate trick. Sir Reginald's voice cracked. A woman. You think one of us? Poirot stood, brushing dirt from his hands. I think nothing yet, Sir Reginald. I observe. We returned to the others. In the dining hall, the other guests reported their findings. Clara held up a small vial, similar to the chloroform one, found under a guest room bed. It's empty, she said, her voice shaking. Beatrice produced a torn envelope, found in a hallway drawer, addressed to Clara D. with no sender's name. Inside was a single line, "The ring or your life." Evelyn Marsh whispered, I found a hairpin, like Sophia's, in the attic. It was near the trapdoor. Thomas Reed hesitated, then held out a folded map, found in a book. It's of the manor's grounds, he said. Someone marked the shed and the east wing. Poirot laid the new clues on the table. The cigarette, the vial, the envelope, the hairpin, the map. These confirm our scarred man is active, moving through the manor, leaving threats. The map suggests planning. We must explore the grounds. Again, following the marked paths, the group trudged outside, the morning air sharp with mist. Poirot followed the map's markings to a clearing beyond the shed, where an old well stood, its stones crumbling. He peered inside, his flashlight revealing a glint at the bottom, a silver ring, its lion's head gleaming. He used a stick to retrieve it, holding it up. The ring Mademoiselle Lyle stole, he said, left here as if to be found. Sophia, brought to the garden in a chair by Dr. Vance, gasped. That's it, his ring. He must have dropped it. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Dropped, or placed. This is too convenient. He slipped the ring into his pocket, noting its weight. The lion's head was heavy, engraved with intricate detail, clue to its owner's identity. Back in the dining hall, Poirot questioned the guests again, one by one. Sir Reginald admitted to seeing the ring on Lionel's finger years ago, but swore he hadn't seen it since. Lady Margaret confessed to suspecting Sophia of theft, but denied knowing about the ring. Clara Henshaw claimed no knowledge of the ring, though her eyes lingered on it. Dr. Vance said he'd never seen it, but his medical bag contained tools that could engrave metal. Evelyn spoke of hearing a man's voice in the garden, whispering Clara the night before. Victor denied everything, his temper flaring, while Beatrice admitted to noticing a strange man in town, scarred, asking about the manor. Thomas Reed stammered, saying he'd read about lions' head rings in heraldry books, linked to old families like the Blackwood's. As noon approached, Poirot sat in the library, the clues before him, the locket, the cigarette case, the scarf, the earring, the shawl, the handkerchief, the glove, the knife, the diary, the button, the cloth, the chain, the letter, the vial, the hairpin, the map, the ring. The scarred man, Clara Duval's past, the lion's head, they pointed to a revenge. Driven by betrayal, but the face remained hidden. A sudden shout broke the silence, coming from the east wing. Poirot rushed upstairs, finding Clara Henshaw standing in a hallway, her face white, holding a blood-stained cloth. "I found it," she said, her voice trembling, "in a drawer, with this." She held up a small knife, its blade clean but sharp. Poirot examined the cloth, noting its coarse texture, different from the wool scrap. "Blood, fresh," he said, his voice grim. "But whose?" He turned to Dr. Vance, who confirmed the blood was less than a day old. "Likely human." The guests gathered, their voices rising in panic. Lady Margaret clutched her necklace, her face pale. Evelyn prayed, while Victor shouted about intruders. Beatrice stood silent, her eyes on the knife. Sophia, still weak, whispered, "He's still here, watching." Poirot raised a hand. "Calm yourselves. This cloth, this knife, are new pieces in our puzzle. The scarred man is close, perhaps inside these walls. We will guard Mademoiselle Lyle tonight, and we will search every room, every corner. The truth is near, but so is the danger." The day faded into evening, the manor a fortress of shadows. Poirot stood watch over Sophia, his mind racing. The ring, the blood, the notes, they pointed to a man driven by rage, but also cunning. As night fell, a faint creak came from the hallway, like a door opening slowly. Poirot's hand tightened on his cane, his eyes fixed on the darkness. The scarred man was near, and the final move was coming. Chapter 10. The tightening Nooster night cloaked Blackwood Manor in an oppressive silence, broken only by the faint creak of a hallway door that sent Hercule Poirot's senses into high alert. He stood guard in the dining hall, where Sophia Clara Duval lay on a sofa, her breathing shallow but steady under Dr. Arthur Vance's watchful eye. The discovery of a blood-stained cloth and a sharp knife in Clara Henshaw's hands had heightened the tension. Each guest now a suspect, in a plot that grew darker by the hour. The clues: a scrap of red fabric, a smear of blood, a torn photograph, a gold locket, a silk scarf, a cigarette case marked LB, a tiny key, a pearl earring, blackmail notes, a blood-stained shawl, a handkerchief, a red glove, a knife, a diary, a brass button, a dark wool cloth, a broken locket chain, a threatening letter, a chloroform vial, a hairpin, a map, and a lion's head ring pointed to a scarred man driven by revenge, possibly Lionel Blackwood, or someone using his name. The ring, found in the well, tied Sophia's past betrayal to the present danger, and Poirot knew the truth was within reach. But so was the unseen hand orchestrating this deadly game. The guests gathered around the oak table, their faces etched with fear and suspicion. Sir Reginald Blackwood sat hunched, his silver hair falling into his weary eyes, his hands trembling as if the weight of his brother's shadow crushed him. Lady Margaret, his wife, gripped her emerald necklace, her green eyes darting between Poirot and the others, her composure fraying. Clara Henshaw clutched her sketchbook, her charcoal-stained fingers shaking, her discovery of the blood-stained cloth casting a shadow over her. Dr. Vance stood by Sophia, his grey beard framing a face that remained calm but watchful. Evelyn Marsh, the widow, whispered prayers, her tattered handkerchief now a pile of threads. Victor Crane, the businessman, slouched, his red face flushed with frustration, muttering about leaving. Beatrice, his wife, sat rigid, her sharp eyes scanning the room like a hawk. Thomas Reed, the librarian, adjusted his glasses, his nervous hands betraying his attempt at calm. Poirot raised a hand, his voice steady but sharp. Mise, Amis, the noose tightens. Mademoiselle Lyle is safe, but the scarred man remains at large. His presence felt in the creak of a door, the blood on this cloth. The lion's head ring, the notes, the cigarette case, they point to a vendetta, perhaps tied to Lionel Blackwood, perhaps not. Mademoiselle Henshaw, you found this cloth and knife. Tell me again, how did you come upon them? Clara's voice trembled. I was looking for my pencil in the East Wing hallway. I opened a drawer, and there they were. I swear I didn't put them there. Poirot's eyes gleamed. And yet, mademoiselle, the cloth is fresh with blood. Dr. Vance, you confirmed it is human, less than a day old. Whose blood, I wonder? Dr. Vance's tone was measured. It's too small a sample to know more, Poirot. A cut, perhaps, not a fatal wound. Poirot nodded, turning to Sophia. Mademoiselle Lyle, you spoke of a scarred man, a ring, a betrayal. Can you remember anything else? His voice, his manner? Sophia's eyes were distant, her voice weak. His voice, low, rough, like he was hiding it. He said I'd pay for what I took, for leaving him. He wore a coat, dark, heavy. I saw a knife in his hand, like that one. She pointed to the knife Clara had found. The guests gasped. Lady Margaret's fingers tightened on her necklace. You think this man is still in the house, Poirot? After all this, Poirot paced, his shoes clicking on the floor. Oui, madame. The shattered window, the footprints, the creaky moves like a shadow, but shadows leave traces. We must search again, focusing on the East Wing, the tunnel, and the manor's perimeter. Sir Reginald, you will show me the East Wing's hidden corners. Dr. Vance, stay with Mademoiselle Lyle. The rest, pair up and search the grounds. Victor Crane snorted. More of this. I'm done, Poirot. Sophia's alive. Let the police handle. The rest. Beatrice's voice was sharp. Victor, your cowardice is tiring. Monsieur Poirot, I'll search with Thomas. Let's move. Poirot led Sir Reginald to the East Wing, its narrow halls dim and cold. The shattered window was boarded up, but Poirot noticed a faint draught from a nearby wall. He tapped it, hearing a hollow sound. Sir Reginald, what lies behind this, sir? Reginald frowned. I don't know. This wing is old, full of odd spaces, perhaps a storage closet. Poirot pushed, finding a concealed panel. It slid open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Another secret, he murmured, his flashlight cutting through the gloom. The stairs led to a small room, its walls damp, its floor littered with dust. In the corner was a pile of rags, and among them a single glove, dark leather, a man's, with a faint stain of blood. Mon Dieu, Poirot said, slipping the glove into his pocket. Our scarred man was here. He noticed a scratch on the wall, a crude Cimbler lion's head. This is no coincidence. Sir Reginald's voice trembled. Lionel, it must be him. But why hide? Why hurt Sophia? Poirot's gaze sharpened. We shall see, Sir Reginald. We returned to the others. Outside, the guests reported their findings. Beatrice held up a torn scarf, dark wool, found near the manor's wall. It's like the cloth you found, she said. Thomas Reed produced a small notebook, its pages filled with sketches of the manor's layout, marked with X's at the shed, the well, and the East Wing. Clara found a cigarette butt, red-stained, near the hedge. Evelyn whispered about hearing a man's laugh, low and chilling. Near the oak tree, Poirot laid the new clues on the table. The glove, the scarf, the notebook, the cigarette butt. These confirm our man's presence. The notebook suggests planning. The glove his carelessness. We must explore this new room in the east wing, and the grounds near the oak. The east wing room yielded more. Poirot found a hidden drawer in the wall, containing a photograph of Sophia, younger, laughing, beside a man with dark hair and no scar. The man's face was circled in red ink, with the word traitor scrawled across it. Poirot's pulse quickened. "This is the man she betrayed," he said, showing it to Sir Reginald. Sir Reginald's eyes widened. "That's Lionel, younger, before he left, but no scar." Poirot nodded. "Then perhaps the scar is new, or this is another." We moved to the oak. In the garden, the oak loomed, its branches heavy with mist. Poirot knelt by the base, finding a small metal box, like the one from before, but locked. The tiny key fit, revealing a single note. "Clara, the game ends tonight. Midnight, the cellar." The guests gasped. Clara Henshaw sobbed, "It's not me. I'm not Clara Duval." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Perhaps Mademoiselle Henshaw, but someone believes otherwise. We will prepare for this midnight meeting. The scarred man will show himself." Back in the dining hall, Poirot questioned the guests again. Sophia confirmed the man in the photograph was the one she'd betrayed, but she didn't know his fate after she left. Sir Reginald admitted to receiving a letter from Lionel years ago, vowing revenge on those who wronged him. Lady Margaret confessed to seeing Lionel in London, scarred, months before, but kept silent to protect her husband. Dr. Vance denied knowing the man, though his calm demeanour seemed strained. Evelyn spoke of seeing the scarred man again, near the well, his eyes glinting in the dark. Victor and Beatrice claimed ignorance, but Beatrice's glance at the notebook suggested otherwise. Thomas Reed stammered, saying he'd seen the notebook's handwriting in a library archive, linked to Lionel's estate plans. As evening fell, Poirot set a trap. "We will guard the cellar tonight," he said. "Dr. Vance, Sir Reginald, you will stay with Sophia. The rest we watch from the shadows. The scarred man expects Clara, but he will find Hercule Poirot." The cellar was dark, its air heavy with mould. Poirot hid behind a crate, his eyes fixed on the locked door where Sophia had been held. The guests waited in silence, their breaths shallow. As midnight approached, a faint scrape echoed a key in the lock. The door creaked open, and a figure stepped inside, tall, cloaked, a scarf hiding his face. Poirot sprang forward, his voice sharp. "Stop, reveal yourself." The figure froze, then tore off the scarf, revealing a scarred face, dark eyes, a jagged scar across the cheek. "You're too late, Poirot," he growled, his voice low. "Clara's mine." Before he could move, Sir Reginald lunged, tackling him. The man fought back, but Poirot and Beatrice restrained him, tying his hands with rope. The guests gasped as Poirot pulled a lion's head ring from the man's finger identical to the one from the well. "Who are you?" Poirot demanded. The man laughed, bitter. "Ask her," he said, nodding toward Sophia. "Ask Clara Duval." Sophia's voice trembled. You're not him. You're not the man I left. Who are you?" The man's eyes burned. "I'm his brother. You destroyed him, Clara. He died for you, and I swore you'd pay." Poirot's mind raced. Lionel's brother. "But Sir Reginald," the man spat, not that fool. Lionel's real brother, from the shadows. He never told you. Did he? The guests stared, stunned. Poirot's eyes gleamed. We have you, monsieur. But the game is not over. You will tell us everything. The night ended with the scarred man bound, Sophia safe, and the manor's secrets spilling into the light. Poirot knew the truth was near, but one final piece remained, the full story of Lionel's hidden brother, and the revenge that nearly claimed them all. Chapter 11. The brothers' revenge. The air in Blackwood Manor's dining hall was thick with shock and dread, the flickering candlelight casting long shadows across the guests' faces. The scarred man, bound with rope and seated under her. Poirot's watchful eye glared defiantly, his dark eyes burning with a mix of rage and triumph. His revelation that he was the brother of the man Sophia Lyle, or Clara Duval, had betrayed years ago, had sent a jolt through the room. The clues: a scrap of red fabric, a smear of blood, a torn photograph, a gold locket, a silk scarf, a cigarette case marked LB, a tiny key, a pearl earring, blackmail notes, a blood-stained shawl, a handkerchief, a red glove, a knife, a diary, a brass button, a dark wool cloth, a broken locket chain, a threatening letter, a chloroform vial, a hairpin, a map, and 2 lions' head rings pointed to a vendetta rooted in Sophia's past. The man's claim that he was not Lionel, Blackwood's brother, but another's, raised new questions about the manor's secrets. Poirot, his sharp mind racing, knew the truth was close, but the final pieces of the puzzle remained elusive, and danger still lurked in the shadows. The guests stood or sat around the oak table, their expressions a mix of fear, confusion, and suspicion. Sir Reginald Blackwood leaned heavily on the table, his silver hair dishevelled, his face pale as he grappled with the man's words. Lady Margaret, his wife, clutched her emerald necklace, her green eyes wide with shock, though her lips remained tightly pressed. Clara Henshaw, the artist, gripped her sketchbook, her charcoal-stained fingers trembling, her discovery of the blood-stained cloth and knife still casting a shadow over her. Dr. Arthur Vance, standing near Sophia, adjusted her blanket, his grey beard framing a face that seemed strained despite his calm demeanour. Evelyn Marsh, the widow, whispered prayers, her shredded handkerchief scattered like confetti. Victor Crane, the businessman, stood with his arms crossed, his red face flushed with anger, while Beatrice, his wife, watched the scarred man with a cold, calculating stare. Thomas Reed, the librarian, adjusted his glasses, his nervous hands, betraying his fear. Poirot raised a hand, his voice steady but sharp, cutting through the tense silence. Mies, Amos, we have captured this man, but the mystery is not solved. He claims to be the brother of the man Mademoiselle Lyle betrayed, seeking revenge for a stolen ring and a broken life. He denies being Lionel Blackwood's kin, yet the lion's head ring, the cigarette case marked LB, and the notes suggest a connection to this house. We must learn his name, his motive, and where he has been hiding. Monsieur, who are you? The scarred man laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the hall. You think you've won, Poirot. I'm Edward Blake, brother of Marcus Blake, the man Clara destroyed. She stole his ring, his pride, and left him to die in shame. I swore I'd make her pay. Sophia, sitting up on the sofa, gasped, her voice weak. Marcus, he's dead. I didn't know. I left him, yes, but I never meant for him to die. Edward's eyes burned. You broke him, Clara. He drank himself to death after you took everything. I found you, followed you, and used this house to trap you. Lionel's name was just a tool, his cigarette case, his ring, easy to borrow. Poirot's moustache twitched. A tool, Monsieur Blake. You expect us to believe you acted alone, planting clues, using chloroform, moving through secret tunnels. Tell me, how did you know of Lionel Blackwood? Edward smirked. Lionel was Marcus's friend, a fool who gambled and lost. He told me about this manor, its secrets, its tunnels. When I learned Clara was coming, I planned everything, her fear, her capture. You almost ruined it, Poirot. Sir Reginald's voice cracked. You used my brother's name, his belongings. How dare you? Edward's laugh was cold. Your brother's gone, Blackwood. Dead or hiding, I don't care. His things were useful, that's all. Poirot's eyes gleamed. And yet, Monsieur Blake, you left too many clues. The cigarette case, the ring, the notes. Why so careless? Edward's smirk faded. Careless. I wanted her to know I was coming. Fear was part of her punishment. Poirot paced, his shoes clicking on the floor. A punishment, oui, but one that required access to this house, knowledge of its secrets. You had help, Nan, someone inside. The guests gasped, their eyes darting to one another. Lady Margaret's fingers tightened on her necklace. You accuse one of us, Poirot. That's absurd. Poirot's gaze was steady. Not absurd, madame. The blood-stained cloth, the knife, the hairpin, these were found too easily, as if placed for us. Monsieur Blake could not move so freely without aid. We must question further. Mademoiselle Lyle, what else do you remember of your capture? Sophia's voice trembled. He grabbed me in the parlor after I left dinner. I smelled something sweet. Chloroform, I think. I woke in the cellar, tied up. He whispered about Marcus, about the ring. I heard another voice once, softer, but I couldn't tell who. Poirot nodded, turning to the group. A second voice. This confirms my suspicion. We will search again, focusing on the manor's hidden places, the tunnels, the east wing, and the attic. Monsieur Blake, you will remain bound under Dr. Vance's watch. Sir Reginald, show me the attic again. The rest, pair up and search the east wing. Victor Crane snorted. More searching. This man's caught, Poirot. Let's turn him over and be done. Beatrice's tone was sharp. Victor, your whining is useless. Monsieur Poirot, I'll search with Clara. Let's move. Poirot led Sir Reginald to the attic, its dusty air thick with cobwebs. The trapdoor they'd found earlier was still open, the narrow staircase descending into shadow. Poirot's flashlight swept the space, revealing a small box tucked behind a beam. He opened it, finding a bundle of letters, each addressed to Clara D., in the same handwriting as the blackmail notes. The top letter read, "You'll pay for Marcus, no matter where you hide." Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured, slipping the letters into his pocket. These were hidden recently. Monsieur Blake had an ally, someone who placed these here. Sir Reginald's face paled. An ally in my house. Who could it be? Poirot's gaze sharpened. That, Sir Reginald, is what we will discover. We returned to the others. In the east wing, the guests reported their findings. Clara held up a small key, different from the one they'd found, discovered under a rug. It's for a lockbox, maybe, she said, her voice shaking. Beatrice produced a torn photograph, half burned, showing a man with a scarred with Blake, younger, with Marcus Blake, both smiling. Evelyn found a silk ribbon, jasmine-scented, near a window. Thomas Reed hesitated, then held out a pocket watch. Its back engraved with M.B. Marcus Blake. Poirot laid the new clues on the table. The letters, the key, the photograph, the ribbon, the watch. These tie Edward to Marcus, but also to this house. The watch, the ribbon, they suggest. Someone here helped him move freely. We must test this key. He tried the key in the locket, but it didn't fit. Instead, it opened a small lockbox found in the library, hidden behind a book. Inside was a single note: "Meet me in the attic, midnight. Trust no one." The guests gasped. Clara Henshaw sobbed, "It's not me. I'm not part of this." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Perhaps, mademoiselle, but someone wishes us to think so. We will prepare for this midnight meeting. Edward Blake is bound, but his ally is not. We guard Mademoiselle Lyle and watch the attic." Day passed in tense preparation. Poirot questioned the guests again, probing for cracks. Sir Reginald admitted to knowing Marcus Blake, a friend of Lionel's, but swore he hadn't seen him in years. Lady Margaret confessed to overhearing Sophia argue with a man on the phone weeks before about a ring. Clara denied helping Edward, though her nervous glances suggested fear. Dr. Vance claimed no knowledge of Marcus, but his medical bag contained a scalpel like the knife Clara found. Evelyn spoke of hearing footsteps in the attic, soft and quick. Victor and Beatrice denied everything, but Beatrice's eyes lingered on the watch. Thomas Reed stammered, saying he'd seen Marcus's name in a library record linked to Lion debts. As midnight approached, Poirot set his trap. He hid in the attic with Sir Reginald and Beatrice, their breaths shallow in the dark. The others guarded Sophia in the dining hall, Dr. Vance at her side. The attic was silent, the trap door open, the air heavy with dust. At the stroke of midnight, a faint creak echoed a footstep on the stairs. Poirot's hand tightened on his cane, his eyes fixed on the shadows. A figure emerged, cloaked, moving silently. Poirot sprang forward. "Reveal yourself." The figure froze, then dropped the cloak, revealing Lady Margaret, her face pale, a small knife in her hand. "It's not what you think," she cried, dropping the knife. "I was looking for answers, not to harm." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Madame Blackwood, you are the ally. You helped Edward Blake." Lady Margaret shook her head, tears in her eyes. "No, I knew Marcus years ago. He loved me, but I chose Reginald. When Edward came, he threatened to expose my past unless I helped. I left the notes, the clues to scare Sophia, not to hurt her." Poirot's mind raced. "You placed the blood, the knife." She nodded, sobbing. "I used animal blood from the kitchen. I wanted her gone, not dead." The guests, summoned by the commotion, gathered in the attic, their voices rising. Sophia stared at Lady Margaret, stunned. You did this to me." Poirot raised a hand. "Calm yourselves. Madame Blackwood, you have much to answer for, but you are not the killer. Edward Blake acted alone in the kidnapping, but you aided his terror. We have our answers, but the manor's secrets are not fully unveiled." Chapter 12. The veil begins to lift. The dawn light filtered weakly through the mist-shrouded windows of Blackwood Manor, casting a pale glow over the dining hall where Hercule Poirot stood, his sharp eyes scanning the tense faces of the guests. The capture of Edward Blake, the scarred man seeking revenge for his brother Marcus, and Lady Margaret Blackwood's confession as his reluctant accomplice had brought the mystery of Sophia Lyle's disappearance closer to resolution. But the air remained thick with unease. Sophia, still weak but safe, rested on a sofa, her true identity as Clara Duval, now known to all. The clues: a scrap of red fabric, a smear of blood, a torn photograph, a gold locket, a silk scarf, a cigarette case marked LB, a tiny key, a pearl earring, blackmail notes, a blood-stained shawl, a handkerchief, a red glove, a knife, a diary, a brass button, a dark wool cloth, a broken locket chain, a threatening letter, a chloroform vial, a hairpin, a map, to lion's head rings, a pocket watch, a silk ribbon, and a bundle of letters painted a picture of betrayal, revenge, and hidden alliances. Yet Poirot sensed the final truth. The full scope of the manor's secrets remained just out of reach. Edward's claim that Lionel Blackwood was either dead or gone, and Lady Margaret's role in planting clues, left one question unanswered. Was there another hand guiding this deadly game? The guests sat or stood around the oak table, their faces etched with exhaustion and suspicion. Sir Reginald Blackwood slumped in his chair, his silver hair falling into his eyes, his hands trembling as he grappled with his wife's betrayal. Lady Margaret, now under guard, sat apart, her emerald necklace dull in the morning light, her green eyes filled with shame. Clara Henshaw, the artist, clutched her sketchbook, her charcoal-stained fingers still, her discovery of the blood-stained cloth and knife still casting a shadow over her. Dr. Arthur Vance stood by Sophia, his grey beard framing a face that seemed strained, his calm demeanour fraying at the edges. Evelyn Marsh, the widow, whispered prayers, her shredded handkerchief a pile of threads. Victor Crane, the businessman, paced, his red face flushed with anger, muttering about the ordeal. Beatrice, his wife, sat rigid, her sharp eyes watching. Everyone, her silence heavy with unspoken thoughts. Thomas Reed, the librarian, adjusted his glasses, his nervous hands betraying his fear. Poirot raised a hand, his voice steady but sharp. Mies, Amis, we have uncovered much, but the puzzle is not complete. Monsieur Edward Blake, bound before us, sought revenge for his brother Marcus, whom Mademoiselle Clara Duval betrayed by stealing a lion's head ring. Madame Blackwood aided him, planting clues to scare Mademoiselle Lyle, using animal blood to create fear. But I suspect another hand, one that used Edward's rage for its own purpose. Monsieur Blake, you said Lionel Blackwood was dead or gone. How do you know this? Edward, his scarred face twisted in a sneer, leaned forward. Lionel was Marcus's friend, a weak man who gambled away his fortune. He told me he was leaving England, running from debts. I never saw him again. His cigarette case, his ring, I took them from his things, left behind in London. Easy to use for my plan. Poirot's moustache twitched. And yet, monsieur, you knew of this manor's tunnels, its secrets. Who told you these things? Edward's eyes flickered. Marcus knew the manor from Lionel. He bragged about its hidden passages, said they were perfect for hiding. I, the first, found maps in his papers after he died. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. Maps, oui, like the one Monsieur Reed found. But your knowledge is too precise. Someone here helped you, beyond Madame Blackwood's actions. We must question further. Mademoiselle Lyle, what more can you recall of your captor? Sophia, her voice weak, sat up slightly. He, Edward. He spoke of Marcus, but also of this house, like he knew it well. He said someone here owed him, too, not just me. His voice changed when he mentioned a debt. It was personal. Poirot's eyes gleamed. A debt beyond your betrayal. Most interesting. Sir Reginald, you knew Marcus Blake. Did he have other enemies in this house? Sir Reginald's voice was hoarse. Marcus was Lionel's friend, a charming rogue, but dangerous when crossed. I didn't know him well, but he once threatened me over a business deal gone wrong. I thought he'd forgotten it. Lady Margaret's voice was low, almost a whisper. He didn't forget, Reginald. Marcus came to me years ago, asking for money to cover Lionel's debts. I refused. He was furious, said we'd regret it. Poirot paced, his shoes clicking on the floor. A debt unpaid, a vendetta born. Madame Blackwood, you helped Edward to scare Mademoiselle Lyle, but did you know his full plan? Lady Margaret shook her head, tears in her eyes. No, I swear. He threatened to expose my past with Marcus, my affection for him before I married Reginald. I left the notes, the blood, to frighten Sophia, to make her leave. I didn't know he'd kidnap her. Poirot turned to the group. We are close, Mies, Amos. The lion's head ring, the cigarette case, the tunnels, they point to a plan rooted in this house's past. We must search again, focusing on the library, where secrets seem to gather. Sir Reginald, show me your private papers. Dr. Vance, stay with Mademoiselle Lyle and Monsieur Blake. The rest, search the library shelves. Victor Crane snorted, his voice loud. More searching. This is madness, Poirot. You've got the man, the woman who helped him. Let's end this. Beatrice's tone was sharp. Victor, your whining solves nothing. Monsieur Poirot, I'll search with Thomas. Let's move. Poirot followed Sir Reginald to a small study off the library, its desk piled with papers. Sir Reginald unlocked a drawer, revealing a bundle of old letters, some marked with M. Marcus Blake. Poirot scanned them, finding one dated 5 years ago. Reginald, you and Lionel owe me. The manor hides more than you think. Pay, or I'll take it. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured. Marcus knew of the manor's secret tunnels. Perhaps more. Did Lionel ever speak of this? Sir Reginald shook his head. Lionel was secretive, even with me. He said Marcus was trouble, but I didn't know why. Poirot slipped the letter into his pocket, his mind racing. In the library, the guests reported their findings. Clara held up a small book, its pages filled with sketches of the manor's tunnels, marked with dates and initials, MB and LB. Beatrice found a sealed envelope, addressed to Sir Art, with no sender, containing a single line. The debt lives on. Evelyn discovered a hidden shelf, revealing a dusty ledger listing payments to MB. Hundreds of pounds, years ago. Thomas Reed hesitated, then produced a photograph, tucked in a book, showing Marcus and Lionel, both wearing lion's head rings. Standing by the manor's oak tree, Poirot laid the new clues on the table. The letter, the book, the envelope, the ledger, the photograph. These confirm Marcus Blake's connection to this house. And Lionel's, the debt, the tunnels. They are the heart of this mystery. We must search the tunnels again, and the oak tree, where Marcus and Lionel stood. The group trudged to the garden, the mist thick around the oak. Poirot knelt, examining the base, finding a small carving a lion's head etched into the bark. This was their meeting place, he said, his voice low. Perhaps where secrets were shared. Back in the tunnel, accessed through the shed, Poirot found a new clue, a small metal box hidden in a crevice. The key from the library opened it, revealing a single documenta contract, signed by Marcus Blake and Lionel Blackwood, promising shared ownership of a hidden treasure in the manor never claimed. This, Poirot said, is what Edward sought. Not just revenge, but wealth. The guests gasped. Clara Henshaw's voice trembled. Treasure, in this house. Poirot nodded. We, mademoiselle, Marcus and Lionel, planned to find it, but something, perhaps betrayal, stopped them. Edward used Sophia to draw out the truth. As evening fell, Poirot questioned the guests again. Clara admitted to overhearing Sophia mention a treasure in a letter, but thought it a fantasy. Dr. Vance denied knowing Marcus, though his medical bag contained tools that could carve stone. Evelyn spoke of hearing a man's voice near the oak, whispering about gold. Victor and Beatrice claimed ignorance, but Beatrice's eyes lingered on the contract. Thomas Reed stammered, saying he'd read of the manor's rumoured treasure in old books. At midnight, Poirot gathered the group in the dining hall, Edward Blake still bound, Lady Margaret under watch. Mies Amos, he said, the truth emerges. Edward Blake sought revenge for Marcus, but also a treasure tied to Lionel. Madame Blackwood aided him, but another may know more. We will search the manor's deepest secrets, tomorrow the cellars, the walls. For now, we guard Mademoiselle Lyle. As the guests dispersed, a faint tap came from the window, a stone, thrown from the dark. Poirot rushed outside, but the garden was empty, only a single note left behind. The treasure is mine. Poirot's eyes gleamed. The game continues. But Hercule Poirot is ready. The night stretched on, the manor a maze of secrets, the truth closer but still veiled. Chapter 13. The treasure's shadow, the morning mist, clung to Blackwood Manor like a shroud, its grey tendrils curling round the ancient oaks as the weak sunlight struggled to pierce the gloom. Inside the dining hall, the air was heavy with tension, the guests' faces drawn with exhaustion and fear. The capture of Edward Blake, the scarred man seeking revenge for his brother Marcus, and Lady Margaret Blackwood's confession as his reluctant accomplice had unravelled part of the mystery surrounding Sophia Lyle's disappearance. Sophia, revealed as Clara Duval, rested on a sofa, her strength slowly returning under Dr. Arthur Vance's care. The clues: a scrap of red fabric, a smear of blood, a torn photograph, a gold locket, a silk scarf, a cigarette case marked LB, a tiny key, a pearl earring, blackmail notes, a blood-stained shawl, a handkerchief, a red glove, a knife, a diary, a brass button, a dark wool cloth, a broken locket chain, a threatening letter, a chloroform vial, a hairpin, a map, 2 lion's head rings, a pocket watch, a silk ribbon, a bundle of letters, a book of sketches, a ledger, a contract, and a note thrown at the window pointed to a vendetta tied to Marcus Blake and a hidden treasure linked to Lionel Blackwood. The latest note, "The treasure is mine," suggested another player in this deadly game, one still hidden in the manor shadows. Hercule Poirot, his sharp eyes gleaming, knew the truth was within reach, but the final piece of the puzzle remained elusive. The guests sat or stood around the heavy oak table, their expressions a mix of dread and suspicion. Sir Reginald Blackwood slumped in his chair, his silver hair falling into his weary eyes, his hands trembling as he grappled with his wife's betrayal and the spectre of his brother Lionel. Lady Margaret, under guard, sat apart, her emerald necklace dim, her green eyes clouded with guilt. Clara Henshaw, the artist, clutched her sketchbook, her charcoal-stained fingers still, her role in finding the blood-stained cloth and knife casting a lingering shadow. Dr. Vance stood by Sophia, his grey beard framing a face that seemed increasingly Strained, Evelyn Marsh, the widow, whispered prayers, her shredded handkerchief now a pile of threads. Victor Crane, the businessman, paced, his red face flushed with frustration, muttering about the endless ordeal. Beatrice's wife sat rigid, her sharp eyes scanning the room, her silence heavy with unspoken knowledge. Thomas Reed, the librarian, adjusted his glasses, his nervous hands betraying his fear. Poirot raised a hand, his voice steady but sharp, cutting through the tense silence. Mies Amos, we stand on the edge of truth. Monsieur Edward Blake sought revenge for his brother Marcus, using Mademoiselle Lyle's past as Clara Duval to trap her. Madame Blackwood aided him, planting clues to frighten her, but the note at the window, "The treasure is mine," suggests another hand, one that seeks not just revenge, but wealth. The contract between Marcus and Lionel Blackwood speaks of a hidden treasure in this manner. We must find it, and the one who claims it, Monsieur Blake. Who else knew of this treasure? Edward, bound and glaring, sneered. You think I'd tell? You, Poirot, Marcus and Lionel were fools, chasing a legend. I used their dream to lure Clara here. The treasure's real, but I don't know where it is. Someone else does, and they're playing you. Poirot's moustache twitched. A game, oui, but one. Hercule Poirot will win. Mademoiselle Lyle, you knew Marcus. Did he speak of this treasure? Sophia, her voice weak but clear, sat up slightly. He mentioned a secret in the manor, something Lionel found in old papers, a cache of jewels, hidden by their ancestors. He laughed about it, said it was a myth, but his eyes were greedy. I thought it was just talk. Poirot nodded, turning to Sir Reginald. And you, Sir Reginald, did Lionel speak of this treasure? Sir Reginald's voice was hoarse. He hinted at it years ago, before he left. He said our great-grandfather hid something valuable, but I thought it was nonsense. Lionel was always chasing dreams. Lady Margaret's voice was low. Reginald, you never told me. If Lionel found something, it could explain the letters, the threats. Poirot paced, his shoes clicking on the floor. A treasure explains. Much the blackmail, the tunnels, the clues. Someone knows its location and uses Edward's revenge to distract us. We must search the manor's deepest secrets, the cellars, the walls, the library. Sir Reginald, show me your family records. Dr. Vance, stay with Mademoiselle Lyle and Monsieur Blake. The rest, pair up and search the cellars. Victor Crane snorted, his voice loud. A treasure hunt now. This is absurd, Poirot. You've got the man. Let's call the police and be done. Beatrice's tone was sharp. Victor, your whining is useless. Monsieur Poirot, I'll search with Clara. Let's move. Poirot followed Sir Reginald to a small archive room off the library, its shelves lined with dusty ledgers and family papers. Sir Reginald pulled out a leather-bound book, its pages yellowed, titled Blackwood Chronicles. Poirot scanned it, finding a passage about a hidden vault, built by Sir Reginald's great-grandfather. Beneath the heart of the manor, marked by the lion's roar, a crude map showed a chamber under the main cellar, accessible through a concealed door. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured, slipping the book under his arm. This is our guide. We go to the cellar. In the cellar, the guests reported their findings. Clara held up a small brass key, found behind a barrel, its head shaped like a lion. It was hidden, she said, her voice trembling. Beatrice produced a torn page, likely from the same book, with a sketch of a lion's head carved into stone. Evelyn found a silk cord, jasmine-scented, tied to a crate. Thomas Reed hesitated, then held out a small metal plaque engraved with LB, and a lion's head found in a crevice. Poirot laid the new clues on a crate: the key, the page, the cord, the plaque. These point to the vault. The lion's head is the key literally and figuratively. We must find this door. The group searched the main cellar, Poirot's flashlight sweeping the walls. Near the locked room where Sophia had been held, he found a stone carved with a faint lion's head. The brass key fit a hidden lock, and with a creak, the stone slid aside, revealing a narrow passage. The air was cold, heavy with dust, and the passage descended steeply, ending at a heavy iron door. Poirot tried the key again, but it didn't fit. "Another lock," he said, his voice low. "We need another key, or another way." Back in the dining hall, Poirot questioned the guests again. Clara admitted to sketching the lion's head symbol in her book, inspired by a carving sheed. Seen in the library, Dr. Vance denied knowledge of the vault, though his medical bag contained a small chisel, perfect for carving stone. Evelyn spoke of hearing a low rumble, like a door moving, the night Sophia vanished. Victor and Beatrice claimed ignorance, but Beatrice's eyes lingered on the plaque. Thomas Reed stammered, saying he'd read of the Blackwood vault in old records, rumoured to hold jewels worth a fortune. Poirot's mind raced. The vault is real, and someone knows its secret. We must find the second key. Madame Blackwood, you knew Marcus. Did he speak of a key? Lady Margaret, her voice trembling, nodded. He mentioned a lion's key, hidden in the manor's heart. I thought he was joking. Poirot turned to the group. The manor's heart, the library perhaps, or the dining hall. We search there now. In the library, Poirot examined the shelves, his fingers brushing a carved panel behind a bookcase. It bore a lion's head, and when pressed, it clicked, revealing a small compartment. Inside was a silver key, its head shaped like a roaring lion. "The key to the vault," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. The group returned to the cellar, the silver key unlocking the iron door with a heavy groan. Beyond was a small chamber, its walls lined with dusty shelves. At the centre stood a chest, its lid engraved with a lion's head. Poirot opened it, revealing a pile of glittering jewels, rubies, diamonds gleaming in the flashlights. Beamed at the guests gasped. Clara Henshaw's voice trembled. "The treasure, it's real." Poirot's voice was grim. But it is also a trap. Someone led us here, knowing we'd find it." He noticed a faint wire, barely visible, running from the chest to the wall. "Do not touch it," he shouted, pulling Clara back. A low rumble shook the chamber, dust falling from the ceiling. Poirot's heart raced. A trap, Mies Amos. We must leave, now. The group fled, the passage trembling behind them. Back in the dining hall, Poirot faced the guests, his eyes blazing. The treasure was meant to lure us, perhaps to bury us. Edward Blake could not have set this alone. Someone among you is the true mastermind. Edward laughed, bitter. "You're clever, Poirot, but you're blind. The treasure's cursed. Marcus died for it, and so will you." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "Not today, monsieur. We have the treasure, but the final secret remains. Who set the trap?" As night fell, a faint creak came from the cellar stairs. Poirot's hand tightened. On his cane, his eyes fixed on the shadows. The truth was close, but the danger was closer still. Chapter 14. The Final Reckoning. The The faint creak from the cellar stairs of Blackwood Manor hung in the air like a warning, the oppressive silence of the dining hall amplifying every sound. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre of the room, his sharp eyes scanning the guests, each a piece in the intricate puzzle that had consumed the past days. The discovery of the hidden vault and its glittering treasure, emeralds, rubies, diamonds, had nearly cost them their lives. The trembling passage, a stark reminder of a trap set by an unseen mastermind. Sophia Lyle, revealed as Clara Duval, rested on a sofa, her strength returning under Dr. Arthur Vance's care. Her past betrayal of Marcus Blake, the spark for Edward Blake's vengeful plot. Lady Margaret Blackwood's confession, as Edward's accomplice, had unravelled part of the mystery. But the final note, "The treasure is mine," and the deadly trap suggested another player, one who had manipulated Edward's rage for their own gain. The clues: a scrap of red fabric, a smear of blood, a torn photograph, a gold locket, a silk scarf, a cigarette case marked LB, a tiny key, a pearl earring, blackmail notes, a blood-stained shawl, a handkerchief, a red glove, a knife, a diary, a brass button, a dark wool cloth, a broken locket chain, a threatening letter, a chloroform vial, a hairpin, a map, 2 lion's head rings, a pocket watch, a silk ribbon, a bundle of letters, a book of sketches, a ledger, a contract, a brass key, a silver key, and a metal plaque pointed to a web of betrayal, greed, and hidden truths tied to Lionel Blackwood's legacy. Poirot knew this was the final act, and the truth would no longer hide. The guests sat or stood around the oak table, their faces pale with fear and exhaustion. Sir Reginald Blackwood slumped, his silver hair falling into his eyes, his hands trembling as he grappled with his wife's betrayal and the spectre of his brother Lionel. Lady Margaret, under guard, sat apart, her emerald necklace a dull reminder of her shame, her green eyes averted. Clara Henshaw, the artist, clutched her sketchbook, her charcoal-stained fingers still, her role in finding clues casting a lingering shadow. Dr. Vance stood by Sophia, his grey beard framing a face that seemed increasingly tense. Evelyn Marsh, the widow, whispered prayers, her shredded handkerchief a pile of threads. Victor Crane, the businessman, stood with arms crossed, his red face flushed with frustration, muttering about escape. Beatrice, his wife, sat rigid, her sharp eyes scanning the room, her silence heavy with calculation. Thomas Reed, the librarian, adjusted his glasses, his nervous hands betraying his fear. Edward Blake, bound and glaring, sat under Dr. Vance's watch, his scarred face twisted with defiance. Poirot raised a hand, his voice steady but commanding. "Mies Amos, the curtain rises on our final act." Monsieur Edward Blake sought revenge for his brother Marcus, using Mademoiselle Lyle's past as Clara Duval to trap her. Madame Blackwood aided him, planting clues to frighten her, but the treasures trap reveals another hand, one that sought wealth and death. The lion's head rings, the cigarette case, the contract, they point to Lionel Blackwood, but Edward claims he is gone. I say, Nan, the truth lies in this room, and Hercule Poirot will unveil it. Monsieur Blake, who set the trap in the vault. Edward's sneer faltered. "I told you, Poirot, I don't know. I wanted Clara to suffer, not to die in a cave-in. Someone else rigged that chest." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Someone else, a mastermind who used your rage as a mask. Mademoiselle Lyle, you said Edward spoke of a debt owed by another in this house. Who?" Sophia, her voice stronger now, sat up. He mentioned a partner, someone who knew the manor's secrets better than he did. He said they'd share the treasure, but he didn't trust them. Poirot nodded, turning to the group. A partner, Mies Amos. Someone who knew. The tunnels, the vault, the lion's head. Let us review the clues. He laid out the items on the table, the locket, the cigarette case, the scarf, the earring, the shawl, the handkerchief, the glove, the knife, the diary, the button, the cloth, the chain, the letters, the vial, the hairpin, the map, the rings, the watch, the ribbon, the book, the ledger, the contract, the keys, the plaque. Each tells a story, but one clue stands apart, the notebook of sketches, found by Monsieur Reed, with X's marking the shed, the well. The east wing? Who drew these? Thomas Reed's face paled, his glasses slipping. I found it, Monsieur Poirot. I didn't draw it. Poirot's gaze sharpened. And yet, Monsieur Reed, you have been most helpful, finding clues, the button, the map, the watch. Too helpful, perhaps. You knew of the manor's secrets, from your books. Thomas stammered. I read about old estates, yes, but I didn't. Poirot raised a hand. Silence. Let us consider. The notebook's handwriting matches. The contracts, signed by Marcus and Lionel, but the X's are fresh, drawn recently. Someone in this house knew the treasure's location and guided Edward. Madame Blackwood, you admitted to planting clues, but not the trap. Who else knew of the vault? Lady Margaret's voice trembled. I told no one, I swear. Only Marcus mentioned it, years ago, and Lionel. Poirot paced, his shoes clicking. Lionel, the cigarette case, the ring, the contract, all his. Yet Edward says he is gone. I say he is not. He turned to the group, his eyes blazing. Lionel Blackwood lives, and he is here. The guests gasped. Sir Reginald's voice cracked. Impossible. Lionel left years ago, running from debts. I'd know if he was here. Poirot's moustache twitched. Would you, Sir Reginald, or did you turn a blind eye? The lion's head ring, found in the well, was a decoy, The real ring was on Edward's finger, taken from Lionel. Let us test a theory. He approached Thomas Reed, his movements swift. Monsieur Reed, remove your glasses. Thomas froze, his hands shaking. Why me? Poirot's voice was cold. Because, monsieur, your nervousness hides more than fear. Remove them. Thomas hesitated, then complied, revealing a faint scar across his cheek, barely visible under the lamplight. The guests gasped. Sophia's voice trembled. You're him. Poirot nodded. Oui, mademoiselle. Thomas Reed is Lionel Blackwood, disguised as a timid librarian. The scar, new since his disappearance, explains Madame Marsh's sightings. He used Edward Blake's revenge to reclaim the treasure, setting the trap to eliminate us all. Lionel's face twisted, his shy facade crumbling. You're clever, Poirot, but you can't prove it. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Oh, but I can. The notebooks, sketches your handwriting from the contract. The watch, engraved with MB. You kept it, a memento of your friend Marcus. The tunnels, the vault, you knew them from childhood. You orchestrated Edward's plan, planting clues to lead us to the treasure, then to our doom. Edward roared, struggling against his ropes. You used me, Lionel. You said we'd share it. Lionel laughed, bitter. You were a tool, Edward. Marcus was a fool, chasing Clara. I wanted the treasure, and you gave me the chance to get it. Sir Reginald's voice broke. Lionel, why? Why hide? Why this? Lionel's eyes burned. You cast me out, Reginald, when I needed help. The treasure was my birthright. I came back, disguised, to take it. Clara's betrayal gave me the perfect cover. Poirot raised a hand. Enough. You, Lionel Blackwood, kidnapped Mademoiselle Lyle, using Edward as your pawn. You set the trap, hoping to bury us with the truth. But Hercule Poirot sees all. The guest stared, stunned. Clara Henshaw sobbed, her sketchbook falling. Lady Margaret whispered, Lionel, how could you? Evelyn prayed, while Victor shouted about justice. Beatrice's eyes narrowed, her silence breaking. You played us all, Thomas Lionel. You're a monster, Poirot signalled to Dr. Vance and Sir Reginald. Bind him. He and Edward will face justice. Madame Blackwood, you two must answer for your role. As Lionel was restrained, Poirot turned to Sophia. Mademoiselle, you are safe now. Your past brought this storm, but you have survived. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. I never meant for this. I'm sorry. Poirot nodded, his voice gentle. The past is a heavy burden, but you are free of it now. The police were called, arriving as the sun rose fully, casting light into the manor's shadows. Lionel, Edward, and Lady Margaret were taken away, the treasure secured for legal review. The guests, shaken but relieved, prepared to leave, their secrets laid bare. Clara Henshaw sketched one final imager, lion's head, its eyes sad. Dr. Vance packed his bag, his calm restored. Evelyn's prayers softened to thanks. Victor and Beatrice left in silence, their bond strained but intact. Poirot stood in the garden, the oak tree looming behind him. The manor's secrets are unveiled, he said to Sir Reginald, who stood beside him, broken but resolute. The lion's roar is silenced. Sir Reginald nodded. Thank you, Poirot. I failed my brother. Poirot's eyes softened. Nan, Sir Reginald. He failed himself. Go forward and rebuild. As the guests departed, Poirot walked through the manor one last time, the clues now memories of a puzzle solved. The case of the vanishing guest was closed, but its echoes would linger in Blackwood Manor's halls, a testament to the power of truth and the brilliance of Hercule Poirot.